Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk, and this is The Drive. And as you heard there, I am your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, in the chair and on the air. Going to bring you a lot of good stuff today. This is a day where you need to settle in and listen, because we got some good stuff coming. And I'll tell you more about all that in just a moment. I want to start out this hour by talking about perhaps the one thing that is more important than anything else when you're trying to decide how the 2024 elections are going to come out. James Carville, who we'll hear from later in this program, he says that it's the economy, stupid. Always remember, in presidential politics, people will vote their pocketbooks. And if you begin to look at where we are economically, it's not good. I mean, the president's out here trying to tell us all the time that Bidenomics, well, don't worry about it because, Bidenomics, it's working.
Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal have heard me say it before, started calling my plan Bidenomics. It's about investing in America and investing in Americans. It's working.
He says it's working. I mean, that's the thing you need to know about, is that he says it's working. Don't pay any attention to the polls. Don't pay any attention to, how you feel at your house. Just understand that Bidenomics,
it's working.
It's working. Well, it's not really working. It's really not working. I'm gonna read through several stories here, and we're going to talk about each one of them individually. And I don't see any of these things getting dramatically better before we have an election. And because they're not any better, I think that a lot of Americans are going to, in the final analysis, make an assessment of where they are economically. And, the old saying Ronald Reagan once said, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? That's the question that all voters will ask themselves. And a lot of people remember, hey, under Trump, I had it pretty good. The economy was rocking along. I was making a lot of money. Employment was at a record high, unemployment at a record low, especially for minorities and Hispanics. There were record low unemployment numbers for them that they hadn't seen since the 60s. And, they remember that. And that's why I think when you look at some of the polling data, you'll find that Biden is really losing support among something that has always been a traditional Democrat voting base. The non-white voters, we're talking about blacks and Hispanics, are not happy with this president and are very unenthusiastic about voting for him again. And I think what they're thinking is, hey, I remember Trump. I thought the guy was a little much sometimes, but you know what? I had money in my pocket, and I wasn't facing this record inflation, and I wasn't paying, these outrageous interest rates. It was pretty good back during Trump. And there's another issue. I'll get to it in a moment, but let's talk a little about the economy, okay? Shall we? Americans finally start to feel the sting from the Fed's rate hike. Those who need to borrow are now getting a lot less for their money. This from the Wall Street Journal today. Rising interest rates are hitting Americans' finances. Consumers in the markets for loans to buy homes and cars are discovering that because of the Federal Reserve's rate increases, their money gets them a lot less than they would have a few years ago. Meanwhile, those with credit cards and other loans that carry rates pegged to broader benchmarks are finding they have gotten much more expensive. Federal officials signaled last week they plan to keep interest rates high for quite a while. And for families who don't need to borrow, higher rates might not affect daily life too much. But for those who do, the Fed's aggressive rate increases are really beginning to sting. The bite is starting now, says Liz Ann Saunders, chief investment strategist at Charles Schwab. Borrowers shopping for mortgages or auto loans are experiencing sticker shock. New 30-year fixed-rate mortgages today carry around 7%. That's around 7%. Up 3% from 2 years ago. The increase can mean a home buyer has to pay hundreds of dollars more a month compared to 2 years ago. Rates on car loans have also shot higher. I can't tell you how pleased I am to have a 5% mortgage. Everybody said, well, I had 3 out of 4. I was happy with 5 because it's now knocking on the door of 7 or 8. And it's going to go up more because interest rates are going to continue to go up between now and the end of the year, at least once now, between now and the end of the year, and then maybe even into the next year. We're not done with interest rate hikes by any stretch of the imagination, because inflation rates are, when you raise them, the Fed is raising them to kill inflation. Of the two things, they think that, high interest rates or inflation. Inflation is the thing that affects everyone all the time with everything they buy. Interest rates, well, we don't like to see the higher interest rates, but if you have to choose between the two, higher interest rates is better than high inflation. So that's why they keep raising the interest rates to try to bring inflation under control. And as I'm going to show you in a moment, that doesn't look like it's going to work, but we'll move on. Buying a home or car right now is completely unaffordable for the typical American household because you're mixing the higher borrowing costs with the high prices. He estimates that the typical American household would need to use 42 weeks of income to buy a new car as of August, up from 33 weeks 3 years ago. The National Association of Realtors calculates the typical American family can't afford to buy a median-priced home. So if you were a young couple, let's say, and you've been saving up and you've been saving up and you've been saving up to buy a house, to put down that down payment so you can get a loan, all of a sudden, you know what? That won't get it done anymore. The money you had saved that would have gotten you in about a year and a half or 2 years ago, for sure, will not get you into a home now. You got to have more because, the interest rates have gone up. You can't afford the payment. Daniel Waddell started looking for a home in St. Paul, Minnesota in January. Mortgage rates kept ticking up during his search. He eventually bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home this spring after offering over asking price. His mortgage is about 6.5%. Waddell and his wife, Peyton Waddell, are deferring other purchases because of the $2,600 monthly mortgage payment. The 25-year-old consultant would like to replace the car they've been driving since they were in college, but he now plans to put off that purchase as long as he possibly can. Even so, Waddell said he's glad they got the house. Rates are obscenely high, and it doesn't seem like they're going to go down anytime soon. He's right about that. But some with lots of credit card debt are feeling particularly strained. Inflation. You get inflation at the grocery store. You go to the grocery store, you're paying more for goods and services and groceries and everything else in your life, gasoline to put in your car. Everything's costing more, and that's inflation. And if you have to choose between, making the rent payment and putting food on the table and putting clothes on your back and all the things you have to do, if you don't have the money for it, you got to go to a credit card or do without. A lot of people are stacking things on credit cards just to make ends meet. And then they're maxed out on their credit cards and they're facing extremely high interest rates. The typical credit card carried a 20.7% interest rate. 20.7, up from 14.6 in February of 22. Collective credit card debt just passed $1 trillion in America for the very first time. So maybe you think, I don't know, maybe it will break and inflation will come down and then they can let up on the interest. Well, I don't think inflation's coming down anytime as soon. Here is why. Oil headed for $150 a barrel without U.S. support for more drilling, according to one oil expert. Oil is headed as high as $150 a barrel unless the U.S. government does more to encourage exploration, according to Continental Resources, Inc., the shale driller controlled by billionaire Harold Hamm. Crude output in the Permian Basin will one day peak, as it already has in shale fields, such as the Bakken region of North Dakota, the Eagle Ford to Texas. Continental Chief Executive Officer Doug Lawler said during an interview, without new exploration, you're going to see $120, $150 for a barrel of oil. That's going to send a shock through the system, he said. It will. Sprinkled among pro-oil presentations from Republican presidential candidates Nikki Haley and David Solomon with Goldman Sachs, Shale executives issued calls for the Biden administration to adopt consistent policies that allow them to drill more. He just shut down oil leases in Alaska, and he tried to do it off the coast of the Gulf, in the eastern portion of the Gulf, but the courts stopped him, said, no, those sales have got to go through. He's doing everything, this president is, to try to keep oil prices high. He's not working to keep them low at all. You know why? Because what the Democrats really want to do is they want to drive you away from your gas car and into electric cars, even though you don't want one. If they let the high price of oil go up and up and up and up, many Americans will make the choice to go to electric, even though they don't really want to, and it doesn't really meet their needs. They're trying to force you out of your internal combustion engine car. That's what this is all about, and they don't care if it goes to 150. But in the meantime, everyone is going to suffer, and that's going to cause inflation. And inflation is, nothing ripples through an economy faster than a high price of oil and energy. It will impact every single thing that you buy. What else? The economy, there's more stuff in the economy. Bankruptcies filings spiked in 2023 under the Biden administration. Data released Tuesday showed Americans filed more than 39,000 bankruptcy cases in August of 23, an 18% increase from the same time last year. An 18% increase in bankruptcies. What does that tell you? People are not able to make it. It's not a good business climate. Personal bankruptcy filings. There were more than 41,000 new bankruptcy cases recorded in August, including for businesses. That marks the 13th consecutive month that bankrupt filings have shown a year-over-year increase. Ever since Biden took office, people are being driven into bankruptcy. That's how bad it is for the American public right now. And I've got another story here that I think is worthy of some time. Maybe we'll set it aside and come back to it. The coming office crisis in cities. Many cities are going to face a difficult time because they have too much office space and not enough people to fill them. It's one of the leftovers from the pandemic. More and more people working from home. They need fewer offices downtown, and there's a glut of them. And a lot of banks have a lot of money tied up in building office buildings that no longer are occupied or are occupied at about 50%. So that's going to hit the banks really, really hard. I mean, all these things to me are signs flashing yellow that say, you know what, this economy is about this close to cratering. And what it also tells me is when the economy is that bad, it's awfully bad news for the person in the White House and occupying that office now. The incumbent will suffer because of the bad economic news. So, I hate to say it, but to get a change, we're going to have to go through some pain here. And when it comes down to voting, I think that people are going to be happy to try anything else. But don't worry, because the Biden administration says Bidenomics, well, it's working.
It's working.
Don't think a thing about it.
It's working.
Don't panic. It's going to be fine because
it's working.
It's working. 20 minutes now past the hour. Let me tell you about a good company that's been around for more than 100 years. Man, I'm telling you, D.T. McCall's and Sons, if you need something for your home, whether it's a piece of furniture or an appliance, we're about to need a refrigerator. So we're going to be going up to D.T. McCall's and looking around, as we have every time we need something. And we've always been pleased with our experience. Appliances, they've got all kinds of appliances on display for you. Furniture, a great selection, a huge selection. It goes on for rooms and rooms and rooms. They're one of the top Cub Cadet mower dealers in the entire country. And they sell a lot of safes, gun safes as well. So whatever it is you might need for your home, you would do well to spend some time investigating the options at D.T. McCall and Sons. As I said, 100 years in this Middle Tennessee area, and you don't make it that long without having a reputation for treating people right. And one other thing you should know, whenever possible, they try to sell products that are made and manufactured right here in the state of Tennessee, so you can help keep your dollars local. To find out about their 5 convenient locations, just simply go to their website, dtmccalls.com.
An update on the United Auto Workers strike as President Joe Biden is making history today. An update on his son, Hunter Biden, who's suing Rudy Giuliani. That and more coming up 3:30 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's Mac Morey there in the newsroom. He's the star of the fan favorite Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports every day right here on the Drive at 525. Everybody's really loving it. I'm loving it, and by the way, very quickly, we never talk about this. You have a podcast as well, do you not?
Oh, yes. Third episode will be coming out tomorrow. Behind the Box Score. You can find it on Spotify or go to my Twitter. And yeah, make sure and tune in. It's fun stuff.
Well, congratulations on that. But
Thank you.
You get him here for free, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I want you. It doesn't cost you a red cent here over on Super Talk. Chris Weber in the control room, and I am your friend and radio buddy. I'm excited about today's show because a little bit later, coming up at 4:35, we often talk here on our show about the truth being out there, because we believe the truth is out there.
I hit the button and it didn't do anything.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I mean, but, we talk about UAPs and UFOs, which, despite the fact that we have a laugh and a giggle about it sometimes, really a serious thing because many people believe it's a national security threat. What are these things that seem to be able to fly through our most sensitive airspaces with impunity. I mean, our pilots have seen them. They've captured some videos of them, probably a lot more than you know. And we've been trying to get, answers, like everybody else. What are these things? And because, you may not believe in them, but I mean, there's some military pilots out there who would disabuse that notion because they've seen things they can't explain. And so one of the people who is trying to get to the bottom of this is Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. And he's heading up investigations up on Capitol Hill. He's asking the right questions, taking a very serious look at what some people think is a very serious issue. And he will join us at 4:35 to talk about, where they are and why is it that the Pentagon seems so reluctant to hand out information to Congress about this. So join us if this is a topic of interest to you. I think you'll find our 4:35 interview with Congressman Tim Burchett to be great interest, and we are anticipating that we would run that again. If you miss it in the 4 o'clock hour, we would run it on the back half of the 6 o'clock hour. So you get a couple of cracks at it if you are not available at 4:35. Try what is it 6:35, and that's assuming that he's good. Well, he will be good. I know. No. We'll do it twice. So this is day number 2 of our edition of Red Eye Radio. I had to, as I mentioned yesterday, I was attacked viciously by a holly bush, and I got poked in the eye.
Eesh.
It still looks kind of bad. I know.
Kind of.
They say it looks bad. But it's not bad, and that it'll be fine in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, if you're watching on our Super Talk TV, you're going to see I look a little bloodshot in one eye.
Just a little bit.
I had a long-standing doctor's appointment, nothing big. Just had to go in for a checkup, and I wear when I go out so that people don't ask me about it. I wear sunglasses. So I was even inside, and I still had my sunglasses on. And you feel like, well, when the doc comes in, you need to take off the sunglasses. He said, "What happened there?" And I said, "It was a mortal battle, me versus the holly bush, and the holly bush got the better of me." And but it's amazing. It looks. I look at it in the mirror. I go, "Ooh, that's not pretty," but it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't affect vision.
Doesn't affect my vision at all. It just looks really bad, and it's called a hematoma of the eye.
You really can't feel it at all?
No, not a bit.
That's crazy.
No, it doesn't hurt one iota. In fact, when I did it, it stung a little bit, and I continued working for another 15 minutes where I asked Cabana wife to take a look at it. And then, the look on her face was one of horror.
You knew that no, things weren't okay.
The word I said, "How does my left eye look? Like we need to go to the emergency room?" And so we did. But honestly, it looks bad, but it doesn't hurt, and I can see just fine. And they say that it will clear itself in a couple of weeks. But I'm telling you,
all right.
It is butt ugly. I'll admit that for sure. So anyway, a great show lined up for you here today. We talked a moment ago about the economy. In a few moments, we're going to talk about another item that I think will have a big impact on the coming elections, as it's having a big impact on America right now. But right now, it's time for the news at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey here with your top stories. Little hot for this week. 90 degrees currently. Traffic and weather forecast coming up in just a few minutes. President Joe Biden's public support of the United Auto Workers on picket lines is a first, says many labor historians. The unprecedented move coming on the UAW's 12th day of the strike waged against Michigan's 3 major car makers. His administration saying it shows he's the most pro-union president ever. He's even received a big welcome from UAW President Shawn Fain. But as Terry Moran points out from Michigan, there's no guarantee the union workers will return with support in the 2024 election.
Talking to the people here at this Ford plant where they make Broncos here, they've told us that they'll take support from anybody. Biden, Trump, it's not political for them. It's about their lives. But you have to believe that this appearance by the President of the United States on their side, on the picket line, that's a jolt of good energy.
And in Tennessee, the Spring Hill GM plant was not on the list of plants going on strike. Quote, Spring Hill, I know you are ready to go, said one of the leaders of the union, and encouraged members of Spring Hill and several other plants to stand by. The Federal Trade Commission taking aim at Amazon, and now the tech giant firing back. Mike Dubusky.
Amazon says the lawsuit represents a fundamental misunderstanding of retail and says that if successful, the action would raise prices and extend shipping times for Amazon customers. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's among the 17 state AGs filing the lawsuit alongside the FTC, says Amazon needs to be held accountable for using its dominant place in the market to disadvantage consumers by prioritizing its own products and stifling competition.
And Hunter Biden is suing Rudy Giuliani and his former attorney, claiming they caused, quote, total annihilation of his digital privacy and violated federal and state computer privacy laws through their alleged efforts to hack his devices. Hunter Biden has also sued former Trump White House aide Garrett Ziegler for the effort to access devices that purportedly belonged to Hunter Biden. And last week, Hunter Biden sued the Internal Revenue Service, alleging its agents illegally released his tax information. That's the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
I want to talk to you about Everseal, a way to stop wasting money on concrete sealing, any sealing of wood, decks, etc. It can protect against crack and pitting for a lot less. You know, an unsealed driveway will crack, but yearly sealing can be very expensive. $1,200 is the yearly cost for high-quality sealing of 600 square feet of concrete. If you add that up over 10 years, it comes to about $15,000. That's a lot of money. Yet if you were to apply some Everseal to that concrete, or maybe, your deck as well, you'd be saving a lot of time and a lot of money because it's guaranteed to last for 30 to 50 years. It's technology that's been around since for years in the industrial applications, but it's now being used around homes and businesses because Everseal found a way to do it in a way that you can afford it. Their process starts with a deep cleaning. You start with the wood and the concrete, and you clean it, make it look as good as you possibly can, and then you add their patented seal, which absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood or concrete, and as I mentioned, will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. You can save money, you can save time, you can enjoy your exterior spaces without having to, work on them year after year after year. Do it once and forget about it. If it sounds good, why don't you talk to my friend Steve Nelson and the folks over at Everseal, 844-EVER-USA, 1-844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com. It's 38 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive. I am your friend and radio buddy. I am your Farb forever, right here on Super Talk. I started out this hour talking about the state of the economy and giving you a blow-by-blow of where we were and how, the high cost of credit right now, high interest rates, still have a problem with inflation, the increasing cost of gasoline, and the fact that some people are now saying that because of the policies of the Biden administration, we may well see a barrel of oil go to $150 a barrel. And that would drive up gas and diesel prices significantly from where they are now. And that will cause inflation to go up, and then they'll have to raise interest rates, and it's a vicious cycle. It's like a big cycle as the economy goes down the drain. And the larger point that I was making is this is one of the big driving factors as voters head to the polls next year. They're very dissatisfied with the state of the economy. And there's another thing out there that I think that people are incredibly dissatisfied with right now, and it really goes beyond being Republican and Democrat. It's hitting everyone. I mean, it has to do with what's happening on our southern border right now. It's unbelievable. This, you expect that Republicans are upset about it because we believe in sovereign borders and all of that. What a concept. And we understand, because we look at this thing, I think, in a reasonable way, that it brings a lot of problems. It causes a humanitarian crisis. It causes a drug crisis. It causes a human trafficking crisis. It causes all kinds of problems for the cities where these millions of migrants are landing. And they're looking for some help. They're looking for a hand up because they came with nothing. And so, we look at it and we say, this is not good. I look at it from a third perspective, which I think is national security. I think we have had 151 in the last year. That's the fiscal year. 151 people have been stopped at the border who are on the terrorist watch list. And that says nothing about the 1.7 million people who've come across the border who are gotaways that we don't know anything about. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from. We don't know a squat about these people. But those are the folks that run from the police. Some of the people coming across the border, they walk over and shake the hand of the Border Patrol. They're very anxious to have a meeting with the Border Patrol agent so they can get their piece of paper and be sent on into America. It's the ones who run from police that we're worried about. But all that stuff I've talked about before. I think we need to look at it from another perspective, and that is how it will impact the coming election. Democrat lawmakers in New Jersey are rejecting a Biden administration proposal to house migrants in Atlantic City ahead of the state's contentious elections, Politico reported on Monday. This is actually from the Daily Caller. The Biden administration is considering relocating a large swath of migrants from New York City to 11 potential locations, including the Atlantic City International Airport. Democrat governor, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, and other state Democrat lawyers have rejected the proposal, fearing it might reflect on the party negatively and hurt them ahead of the state's elections. I don't see any scenario where we're going to be able to take in a program in Atlantic City or, frankly, elsewhere in the state, Murphy said during an interview on one of the local TV stations. You need scale, enormous amount of federal support, resources that go beyond anything that we can afford. State lawmakers feel that an influx of migrants will further strain an already poor Atlantic City, which is given the fallout from casino closures that previously helped prop up the county's economy. The proposal to house migrants in the city's airport would also stunt local officials' plan to position it as one of the region's biggest economic engines. See, Democrats are struggling in New York, where they have 110,000. By the way, don't let them tell you that Governor Abbott sent them all. 110,000. Governor Abbott sent 13,000. So 97,000 of the 110,000 found their way to New York City without any assistance from the governor of Texas. A disruptive incursion of this type would negatively impact our region and residents. These are Democrats talking about a policy that our Democrat president is allowing to go forward. It's ridiculous. Here, housing immigrants worsening the U.S. housing crisis. 2.7 million illegal aliens entered the country last fiscal year, driving, that's right, 2.7 million, driving up homelessness and straining resources. The surge in illegal immigration into the United States is worsening the country's housing crisis, putting upward pressure on property prices and contributing to the homeless problem. An influx of illegal aliens tends to add to the demand for homes and push up prices, and many cities don't have enough affordable homes or shelters to house the rapidly swelling number of people. As property prices rise because of surging demand, some residents can get priced out of the market, becoming homeless. Chicago, there are 6,139 homeless residents, according to the Department of Family and Support Services. The city had almost 9,500 illegal immigrants as of September 15th. Chicago's severely underfunded homeless system has led to a fighting for scarce resources. In New York, which is facing a serious illegal immigration issue, the government is obliged to provide shelter to any individual who makes such a request, because they're a sanctuary city. At the beginning of September, the city was sheltering almost 60,000 asylum seekers. Ohio raised the issue of illegal immigrants. J.D. Vance, a Republican from Ohio, if you think of what it means to have 20 million or 25 million undocumented illegal immigrants in this country in a situation where we're not building enough housing, that puts incredible pressure. You have way more buyers, for way fewer homes. That puts incredible pressure on home buyers and people who just want to live a decent life. He's right. And you think that the Biden administration, doesn't want this to happen? They very much want this to happen. Biden administration moves to give federal IDs to illegal immigrants. You heard me. The Biden administration is now moving forward, according to the Post-Millennial, with plans to provide identification cards to illegal immigrants via Immigration and Custom Enforcement. These ICE Secure Docket Card program details emerge revealing how the cards will look. In appearance, they look like driver's license or non-driver IDs. ICE is saying, however, they will not be an official form of federal identification, simply acting as a more modern alternative to paper documents issued to those who make crossings into the United States. Images obtained by Fox show the cards will be clearly marked with ICE logos and include all the relevant information about the holder, but they're going to go through the process of giving them IDs. What's next? Driver's license. What's next? Voter IDs. What's next? Citizenship. I mean, they're going right down the path. The Democrats do things incrementally, a little at a time, so you don't notice until you look back over the course of 2 or 3 years and you say, wow, how did that get slipped by us? Incrementally. That's how it happened. And this doesn't even begin to cover the crisis that is actually going on in border states. Here is Mayor Rolanda Salinas of Eagle Pass, Texas. Now, he's a Democrat, right? This is a Democrat talking about the problem on the border, and unbelievably, this is actually being reported on by CNN.
We need bigger action, better action from our federal government and the Mexican government as well. It's impacting our safety, it's impacting our economy. It's just a mess.
And here is Mayor Oscar Leeser of El Paso, Texas, also a Democrat, also on CNN. You see, the reason I mentioned CNN is CNN hasn't covered this until just recently. And, that's why so many people in America who don't watch Fox News or listen to conservative talk radio don't know anything about the crisis on the border, because nobody is reporting on it until recently. I guess, when the Democrats start squealing about something, these other news organizations decide, well, I guess we're going to have to cover it now.
And the team here in El Paso has done an incredible job. The city, the county, we all work together to make sure that we provide a bed and a warm meal for everyone. And but we are at a breaking point. We're running out of hotels. We're running out of space. And when I talked to Chief Owens from the Border Patrol, he told us to prepare for about 2,000 crossings a day. So that's something we're preparing for. We actually went out and bought a school that had been closed for about 3-4 years, and we're going to prepare that for an emergency shelter.
They're going to open up a school. How would you like to be in a neighborhood where there was an old school that had been closed, and now they're going to turn it into a shelter for immigrants who have come across the border illegally? How would you feel about that? Well, it doesn't sound all that bad when you hear them describe how they're going to do it.
That school's on 19 acres, and we're going to sit there, and half of it will be completely apart, will be an emergency sheltering service, and the other half will be an animal services where we'll have an animal park out there, and they'll be able to come walk a dog, sit there and play with a dog, so it helps them with mental health.
I'm not sure I believe that. Yeah, they're gonna make half of the school is going to be for people, and then they're going to use a lot of the land on that school. It's a 19-acre plot for a dog park, because the illegal immigrants get stressed out, and even though they didn't bring their pets with them, most of them, I guess, they'll be able to go out because the good people of El Paso will provide them with puppies to play with, and walk and throw the ball and the frisbee. And, because that helps them with the mental stress of being, in America? I'm not making this up. They're going to give them a dog park. And because they don't have dogs, they're going to give them dogs to play with. Only in the United States. But, you can tell that this is a problem for the city of El Paso as well. As he said early on in that interview, the city is at the breaking point. All of these things, the economy, as we talked about earlier, the border, are going to be things that I think are going to be driving the next election in a huge way, because people are simply upset, Democrat and Republican, and that does not, I think, bode well for the Biden administration. 50 minutes now past the hour. Hey, have you heard about lab-grown diamonds? Here's a word of advice. Don't buy a lab-grown diamond until you talk to my friends at Genesis Diamonds. Genesis will reveal the secrets behind the new product and make sure that you are protected if you decide to buy one. Genesis has non-commissioned experts who will teach you the difference between a natural diamond and a lab-grown diamond so you can make the smart, informed decision. One important fact you will learn is that some jewelers are grossly overcharging for lab-grown stones. There are some insane markups going on, and you need to be aware. For example, at some stores, they are selling a 4-carat round lab-grown diamond stud earrings at about $9,000. But at Genesis, you can get them for about half that price with better quality diamonds. That's right, half the price. Bottom line, you need to get informed. You need to get a second opinion. You need to be careful and be an informed consumer. And that's what Genesis promises. They are transparent and will teach you all you need to know to make a smart buy, just like they have always done. Genesis Diamonds, your trusted advisor when it comes to the complex world of diamonds. Green Hills and Cool Springs, official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
This just in, a judge has ruled that Donald Trump defrauded banks and insurers while building his real estate empire. A look at the possible government shutdown and the effects that it would have, plus the IRS now cracking down on third-party ticket suppliers. Those stories all headed your way at 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at where the market's ended the day. I'll start by looking at the price of oil, though. Oil, West Texas Intermediate oil, is up about 94 cents at $90 a barrel. Brent crude, $94 a barrel. That's up almost a full percent. And the markets did not do very well today. Dow Jones Industrial Averages fell 388 points. The S&P fell about 63 points. And the NASDAQ fell 207 points. Not a very good day on the market. Let's get more from John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management. John, what's driving the market today?
Yeah, you're right, Brian. Pretty rough day in the market. Investors are still trying to digest hawkish message from the Fed, higher interest rates for a longer period of time. An additional Fed policymaker from Minneapolis reiterated that message today. But what really continued to drive that was the consumer confidence report came out today, and it was pretty bad. It was actually a 4-month low. And to your point, consumers are really struggling with higher inflation and the cost of things, and that is driven a lot by crude oil, and that is something that, each and every day recently it seems to be making new highs, and that's really going to impact every area of our lives, as we all know. So consumers are a little bit shaken. We're going to get revised GDP later this week. So again, crude oil, continue to watch that.
All right. Thank you, John Maxon. Listen, find out all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 59 minutes past the hour. I want to tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Kevin Mitchell is my doctor. Dr. Ashley Mitchell is there. She's as well one of the two attending people who can help you if you have pain in your back, your neck, your arms, your legs, your feet. I mean, if you have that neuropathy thing, the tingling in the arms and legs, what you need to do is dial this number, 615-246-5009. That's right, 615-246-5009. But Dr. Mitchell wants me to tell you about something else very important to him. It's a way to show your patriotism through the flying of the grand old flag. The Wellness Institute is putting American flags back in our cities and town with something called the Patriot Way Project. And already they are responsible for having flown over 75 brand new flags. Now, you can donate at patriotwayproject.com or come see them at their facility there in Mount Juliet. So, listen, when you visit the facility for treatment, you need to know this is also a company that will do its best to give back to the community. And also, if you have bulging and herniated disc or some kind of back problem, they've got all kinds of therapy that's going to help you. So come see them today at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 89 degrees, a mostly sunny day on Music Row. Expecting similar temperatures in the mid-80s at the high, mid-60s as the low, with some chances of showers and thunderstorms beginning tomorrow night through Thursday night. Complete weather and traffic report in 5 minutes. Some breaking news. A New York judge decided today that former President Donald Trump submitted, quote, fraudulent valuations for assets that were then used by himself, his eldest sons, and his business to obtain better loan and insurance terms. The judge's determination came as he granted partial summary judgment in New York Attorney General Letitia James' multi-million-dollar civil fraud lawsuit. The judge cites, quote, false and misleading square footage of Trump's Fifth Avenue apartment, among other faulty valuations. The judge said Trump and the other defendants have a, quote, propensity to engage in persistent fraud, severely undercutting the defense Trump will offer when the case goes on trial next month. And in the nation's capital, an evening vote expected today on a package of bills to fund parts of the government, but an event that is uncertain as hard-right Republicans show little to no interest in a compromise, and now there are millions worried they will go without a paycheck for an unknown amount of time. Jay O'Brien explains.
Federal employees, they would go without pay. If they were deemed essential, they would work and get back pay when the government were to reopen, but the non-essential employees would be furloughed and not get paid. And the reality here is we're not any closer to a deal on Capitol Hill that will ensure that they would get paid from Saturday onwards.
And he went on to say that a number of Republicans holding out believe that border security is an issue worth shutting the government down over. Ticket prices. The IRS will now require all third-party payment companies like Ticketmaster to report people who sell $600 or more of tickets this year to the IRS via 1099. This comes as a part of the American Rescue Plan Act that passed back in 2021. And this $600 amount is decreased from the old threshold of $20,000. And some entertainment news. Extra dates have been added to a country music superstars tour, and Nashville is included.
Morgan Wallen is extending his One Night at a Time tour into 2024. 10 additional stadium shows, including Nissan Stadium. Concert set for May 2nd. It's going to include special guests Bailey Zimmerman, Nate Smith, Lauren Watkins. Access to tickets at morganwallen.com. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon. Hour number 2 of the drive now kicking off at 8 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. I want to remind you, coming up at 4:35, we'll have an interview with Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who is leading the effort to try to get answers from the Pentagon about these things they call UAPs. You definitely don't want to miss it. Stick around. If you miss it at 4:35, we'll do a replay of it at 6:35. I think it's going to be a fascinating interview, and I'm really looking forward to it. In the meantime, I want to talk about, let's call it Election 2024. We love to do that because it's never too early to start talking about the election. There is a story that's getting a lot of buzz in Washington from the people over at Axios, and it's getting a lot of pushback from the White House because, quite frankly, it's negative. It has something negative to say about the president, and the Democrats read Axios, and they don't want this to go too far, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. I think it's fascinating. President Biden and his campaign are working on a critical project for his re-election bid, making sure he doesn't trip. As voters express deep concerns about the 80-year-old president's age and fitness for office, Biden's team is taking extra steps to prevent him from stumbling in public, as he did in June when he tripped over a sandbag at the Air Force Academy. With a physical therapist, Biden has been doing exercises to improve his balance. Since his stumble in June, he's been seen wearing tennis shoes more often to avoid slipping and using the short stairs on Air Force One. They quit using the big tall stairs, which actually takes him right up to where his office is. They're putting him on the retractable short stairs because it's not such a hike and it's fewer steps. And they think, well, if he's going to fall, let's let him fall inside the aircraft where there are no cameras to see it. But if he falls on the tall stairs, it's the thing we don't want because it makes him look weak. Interestingly enough, today coming down the short stairs, he nearly fell again while he was going up to be with the UAW workers. Why it matters, Democrats, including some in the administration, are terrified that Biden will have a bad fall, with a nightmare scenario of it happening in the weeks before the November 24 elections. Some senior Democrats privately have been frustrated with Biden's advance team for months, citing the sandbag incident and noting the president often appears not to know what direction he's going after he speaks at the podium. Often without context, Republicans have used video clips of Biden looking confused about where to go after speeches to raise further questions about his age. I mean, it's every single time. Listen, we're just reporting it as it is. It's every single time he does a public event, he gets through and he looks around like, where am I supposed to go? I have no idea where I'm supposed to go. Can somebody point Grandpa in the right direction? Anyway, so the White House is pushing back on this quite a bit. See, Democrats are terrified right now because they've got this old man who stumbles and bumbles and mumbles every time he goes out somewhere. And Democrats are now beginning to say publicly what they've been whispering quietly for some time now. Maybe we need to think about another option because I don't think this guy can get reelected. And some of the polls lately show that Trump would win in a matchup with Biden. So, that's the one thing that Democrats don't want. So they're beginning to talk more openly about the problems that this president faces in an election. Here's James Carville. He's sitting down for one of those interviews with Bill Maher. Where they drink a little. I don't know what they're drinking, but it looks like an adult beverage of some kind, and maybe smoke a cigar or something else. I don't know what happens in these sessions, but they've been very interesting interviews from time to time. Bill Maher can surprise you sometimes. You never know what his position's going to be, but he's sitting down with James Carville, and I love Carville because Carville will just tell you what he thinks. And he did so in this interview.
I don't like when people take one poll and extrapolate too much from it, but I've seen the last 8 polls are all the same. 73 to 77% of the country does not want Biden to run again. I'm just round that to 75. Right. Okay. That's a big number, man.
That's a big number.
Yeah, it's a big number, and he's right about that. And it is the one thing that Democrats look at, and they are terrified, absolutely terrified. By the way, it came up during the interview. This is a great clip. By the way, we had to clean these things up. If you hear a word that sounds a little strange, it's because we reversed it. We reversed it because if we left it forward, the FCC would come and take our license away. So, it was a very frank and full discussion among adults, it was. But he says, a lot of people think that, the Democrats are wacky. And he says, well, there's a reason for that. About 11% of the Democrats who call themselves progressives.
The identity left are silly. They're not evil. They're just goofy. They have the original word woke, and I did some research on this. The first time that people think it came up was a black jazz musician who was born around Shreveport, died in a jail in Houston. And the word was to denote that black people need to be woke in their interactions with the police.
I've heard that also.
Which seemed like a good idea. That's what they call in the military, situational awareness.
Absolutely.
And then what happened was overeducated coastal white people got a hold to the word, and as they do everything else, they completely fucked it up and pissed everybody in the country off.
Now you're speaking my language.
And if we just could get the humanities faculty at Amherst to shut the fuck up, we'd be a lot better off.
That technique doesn't leave a lot to the imagination, does it, where I reverse the sound?
No, but it does the job, yeah.
It does the job. You get the impression of the passion in his voice, but it's better, I think, than a bleep. We could bleep it.
I agree. Yeah.
I love I don't know anybody else who does this way, but I like doing it that way. So, there's James Carville, but he's sending up the flares that, the woke left is really putting, the rest of the country, they don't agree with what the loony left is saying. And he's also very concerned about the 75% of people in America who believe that Joe Biden should not run for re-election. And they don't like Kamala Harris any better. Kamala Harris, according to the dailymail.com, this is a 10-page story. I can't get to all of it right now, but you can find it on yourfarb.com. You can find the link there, and you want to look it up and read more about it. Kamala Harris is incompetent, unqualified, and the worst vice president in 40 years, according to voters in a brutal Daily Mail poll. Kamala Harris is viewed as the worst vice president in decades, according to an exclusive poll for the dailymail.com, as pressure grows on Joe Biden to pick a new running mate for the 2024 election. You say, well, why would they do that? Well, I'll tell you why, because a lot of people look at Joe Biden and they say, well, he's old and he's infirm, but if we had a backup and vice president that was competent, then perhaps we could feel a bit more comfortable about voting for Joe Biden, because we don't feel confident about Kamala Harris. And that's why it's important. A lot of people say dump Harris. I think that that's probably a strategy that many Democrats would not like. It certainly would irritate black voters. It would certainly irritate women voters if they were to dump her to the side of the road like a bad habit without giving her something that was, a place to be that would not be considered insulting. To me, the only thing that's out there that Kamala Harris could do in the eyes of many Democrats that would not be looked at as a demotion is to be appointed to an opening on the Supreme Court. The problem is there are no openings on the Supreme Court. Now, I don't really want her on the Supreme Court. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying Democrats, if you said, well, we're going to make her a Supreme Court justice for life, and then we're going to get another vice president to come in here and to be our vice presidential running mate, and they actually then pick somebody competent, then I think many Democrat voters would be okay with voting with Biden if they knew that the backup was good. Right now, they don't look at the backup as good. She's some 40% of respondents placed her ahead of Republican Mike Pence and Dick Cheney as the worst recent holder of the office. When asked to pick a word to summarize the vice president, this is brutal. Respondents picked incompetent, far ahead of complimentary words such as smart or strong. And if that wasn't clear enough, almost half of 1,000 people surveyed said Biden should swap out his running mate for 2024, including 27% of Democrats and a quarter of black respondents. Wow. The poll of 1,000 conducted by JL Partners carries a margin of error of 3.1%. So Kamala Harris is viewed as the worst vice president of recent years. 40% say she's the worst. Mike Pence came in at 17%. Dick Cheney came in at 17%. Dan Quayle came in at 7%. Joe Biden, when he was vice president, came in at 7%. George H.W. Bush came in at 2%. He was vice president, of course, to Ronald Reagan. Al Gore came in at 1%. And 8% don't know. But the difference is here, nobody fares as bad in this poll as Kamala Harris does by a wide margin. 40% say she is incompetent to carry on as president of the United States. And again, incompetent is the word that seems to show up here an awful lot when you do these kinds of polls. The results reflect Harris's torrid time as vice president and the reservations of some senior Democrats who fear Biden's advanced age means many voters will wonder where his 58-year-old vice president would have to take over during a second term. If there's anyone more incompetent than President Biden, it's his VP, says James Johnson, who's a Republican pollster. There is more to talk about. More to talk about here with the election. We'll get to that in just a moment. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me tell you about United Structural Systems. Listen, if you have problems with foundation issues on a building, a home, an office, or if you have, perhaps some waterproofing issues, there's one company that you want to call, USS. I'm telling you, there are over 25,000 satisfied residential customers. And here's how it works. You call them, they come out, they look at your problem. You got cracking bricks, you got, some of the things that suggest you may have a foundation issue. Well, they will come out, give you their best assessment, give you really good guidance, give you a suggestion, and then if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. That's right. And then, when it's all over, you pay up. But so many people are very satisfied with this process. Chris says, the crew that worked on our house has been top-notch. I appreciate the integrity, the speed of feedback, the quality of work provided by all who have worked with us. Jerry says, this is the best crew we have ever had to work on our house. Constant, excellent experience. Gloria, hats off to the crew for their hard and excellent work. I am very pleased. That's right. At USS, they guarantee their best. Call USS at 615-488-7855. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at ussTN.com.
Former President Donald Trump found guilty of defrauding banks and insurers. Men found with child pornography right here in Tennessee. And today's Money News. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
25 minutes now past the hour. Listen, stick around because in about 10 minutes from now, we're going to be doing an interview with Representative Tim Burchett about, is the truth out there? He's actually one of the people in Capitol Hill trying to get real honest answers about that. So it's going to be a very interesting interview. I think you'll love it. We're talking about, 2024, and I had so many stories that I feel like I wanted to continue talking about that for a moment. Hillary Clinton has apparently warned Joe Biden to pay close attention to the threat of a third-party candidate. This, according to the Washington Examiner. President Joe Biden confided in former Democrat presidential candidate Hillary Clinton about the threat of a third-party candidate overshadowing his general election campaign. Two people familiar with the conversation told NBC News that Biden met with Clinton in private at the White House last month. Clinton made her first public return to the White House since the Obama administration to honor recipients of a prestigious art award. Clinton reportedly told Biden he needed to take the third-party threat seriously and come up with a way to compensate for it, one of the sources told NBC News. The former candidate has experience in this matter. Her allies have blamed Jill Stein for siphoning voters away from Clinton in a crucial swing states that year. That's not what happened. But anyway, if that's what you want to believe, Hillary, go ahead. Trump appears to be on track to benefit from a third-party candidate in 2024 because it's thought that any third-party candidate would draw from Biden more than Trump. Democrats and their allies have criticized groups such as the No Labels group for a unity presidential ticket, claiming it could harm Biden and aid the GOP, something No Labels has adamantly denied. No Labels co-chairman Ben Chavez said the centrist political organization would pull out of the contest if polls showed Biden with a significant lead over Trump, or if Trump is not selected as the GOP presidential nominee in 2024. So they all want to find somebody who can beat Trump, and the No Labels folks are sitting there. I think that's Plan B for Democrats, as far as I can tell. Find somebody who calls themselves a moderate Democrat and run them, because they figure a moderate Democrat is better than having Trump. I guess, I don't know. And here's another option. Again, pretty interesting. Speculation that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may leave the Democrat Party could turn President Joe Biden's 2024 nightmare re-election scenario into a reality. Kennedy was asked by a voter at a town hall in North Charleston, South Carolina this month whether he'd launch an independent bid for the White House, although he said he's determined to keep his ties to the party, long associated with the Kennedy clan. The nephew of President John F. Kennedy and son of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy didn't rule out anything. They're trying to make sure that I can't participate in the political process, so I'm going to keep my options open. Democrats, of course, again, worry that a third-party candidate will pull votes away from Biden. And on the other side of the equation, there's going to be a debate tomorrow in California at the Reagan Library. 7 people will be on the stage, and it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, it'll be fun to watch maybe, and we'll be watching it. We'll play the sound here, of course, tomorrow. Thursday morning, but Thursday afternoon. I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter because Trump is so far ahead of all of these guys that no one has a real chance, it seems at this point, of overtaking him. And if they're hanging around hoping that, well, some of these charges, are going to hurt Trump, it hasn't happened yet. Every time he gets charged with something, his numbers go up. So, is it important? I guess we should look at the bench and find out who's out there. Maybe you could look at it and say, well, maybe one of these persons could be Trump's running mate, and I think that's a real possibility. But it doesn't matter because Trump is so far ahead, 30, 40 points, 50 points in some polls, that nobody is likely to catch him, it seems to me. And here's an example. He's even crushing it in California. That's right. Right now, this is shaping up pretty good for Republicans. It's a long way, A lot can happen. Nobody knows what the morrow brings. But right now, it's looking favorable for Republicans and not so good for the Democrats as long as they cling to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. 30 minutes now past the hour.
.430, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 89 degrees on Music Row. No showers expected for the rest of today, though. Tomorrow night could see some scattered thunderstorms around Middle Tennessee. Full weather forecast, latest traffic reporter on the way in 5 minutes. Some ongoing breaking news that we're covering. A New York judge decided today that former President Donald Trump submitted fraudulent valuations for assets that were then used by himself, his eldest sons, and his business to obtain better loan and insurance terms. The judge's determination came as he granted partial summary judgment in New York Attorney General Letitia James's multi-million-dollar civil fraud lawsuit. The judge cites false and misleading square footage of Trump's Fifth Avenue apartment, among other faulty valuations. The judge said Trump and the other defendants have a propensity to engage in persistent fraud, severely undercutting the defense Trump will offer when the case goes on trial next month. And some crime right now in Tennessee. 4 Williamson County residents have been arrested after being indicted for possessing child pornography and sexually exploiting minors. Those 4 men were aged 26 to 65, and officials began this investigation once they saw that 43-year-old Julian Alderman, an already registered sex offender, started sharing explicit photos. And now over to some money news. Daria Albinger takes us on a walk through Wall Street.
Stocks fell to their lowest level since June. The Dow off 388 points, the Nasdaq giving up 207, and the S&P closing down 64. The markets are on track for their worst month of the year as the realization sets in that the Federal Reserve will keep interest rates high well into next year to bring inflation under control. President Biden joined United Auto Workers in Michigan on a picket line with their strike against major car makers in its 12th day, urging union members to stick with it. He exchanged fist bumps with workers and encouraged striking Hollywood actors to vote in favor of a new walkout against video game makers. UAW members will hear from former President Trump on Wednesday night. The FTC and attorneys general from 17 states filed an antitrust lawsuit against Amazon. They allege the e-commerce giant uses its position in the marketplace to inflate prices on and off the site, overcharge sellers, and stifle competition.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
If you were in the market for a pole barn, the 2 brothers that run Stoltz Co. are the 2 guys you need to be talking with. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is, of course, key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So just go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's STOLTZCO.com. And tell them that your friend and radio buddy sent you there. And if you want to give them a call, 615-622-5992. At this website, you're going to see, some pretty good-looking stuff, some examples of things that they've done for other people. And I think you'll come to the quick realization this isn't your grandpappy's pole barn. That's 615-622-5992. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com. "37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson here. You're listening to The Drive. And let's go straight to the Newsmaker hotline. But an interview that I've been looking really forward to with Congressman Tim Burchett of the Congressional District, the 2nd Congressional District of Tennessee. Congressman Burchett is one of those people who is trying to get answers about this confounding issue of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Some people call them UFOs. It's a serious investigation, and it's a serious matter, as we'll find out as we get deeper into this interview. Congressman, thank you for joining us. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
What concerns you most? What is your biggest concern about these things that we now call UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon?
Well, we always call them UFOs, but I think UAP was something designed to further confuse the public, honestly. I think what bothers me most about it is the fact since 1947 they've said these things don't exist. Now you're seeing polling data showing that 60% or more of the American public believes that there's something else out there. And now all of a sudden the Pentagon, NASA, everybody, the war pimps at the Pentagon, everybody's wanting money to study these things. That should disturb you because the Pentagon loses billions of dollars a year, allegedly, black projects, black ops kind of things. They also have never passed an audit. Yet Chuck Schumer has put in the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, an amendment that just says if there is anything dealing with UFOs, UAPs, et cetera, that it should go through a clearinghouse. So if it has any national security implications, then it doesn't need to be released. Well, there you go. More money for the Pentagon to just release the files. And all they're doing is putting up another barrier between us and the public. You know, we had expert testimony. We had pilots, best in the world, Navy pilots. My goodness, the best there is. They said they took an oath. They held up their head and said, yes, in fact, we chased these objects. They hovered for long periods of time. They did maneuvers that we know of nothing on this earth that's capable of it. And the human couldn't withstand the G-force pressure. It would literally liquefy them. And so, here we are again, trying to get a committee meeting. We're thrown up every roadblock imaginable, just from staff members, our own party, the other party, just, the swamp in general. And we get a committee, and it gets too big. It was one of the largest attended committee meetings in the last 15 years. People came from all over the country on their own dime. And guess what? We asked for another committee, a select committee, so we would have, in fact, subpoena powers. It would give us a little more power than just the standard run-of-the-mill type situation. Well, the speaker told me no, and I asked him why. He said, well, we've kind of stepped up. Basically what he said was, I can't remember exactly, that we stepped on the toes of the Intelligence Committee, which is kind of a little fraternity. They keep stuff amongst themselves, and they just leak it out to the leadership when they need to. And, and you basically get on that committee when you are when you've raised a whole lot of money for the caucus or the conference.
Do you believe, like many people do believe, that these things are real? I mean, do you believe the pilots? I mean, I hear these pilots give their testimony, and these are described as objects that can do unbelievable things that defy the law of physics as we understand them, and that they can run through our most sensitive airspaces with impunity. Isn't that a national security concern that we should be looking at perhaps more closely?
I agree. We've had documented 14 near-miss incidents. That was in testimony in one of the Intelligence Committee that was open to the public. Yet we still run into that brick wall. They won't release this information. It's about power. It's about control. I can talk all day on it, but that all the power, control, corruption, money. I mean, that's what runs Washington D.C. And the swamp is deep and it's real. It just depends on which end of the deep end you're in the swamp. So, and it's about as deep as it gets because it crosses party lines. It's almost generational to cover up. And, I believe it's real. I believe they're out there. I believe the Bible. It says God created the heaven and the earth. He created the heaven. If you read the first chapter of Ezekiel, he talks about the wheel within a wheel. This thing was flying, which was a translation actually. But, I believe astronauts like Gordon Cooper, who says they filmed one landing. And then they, when they called Washington about the tapes, the next day, they said, we don't know what you're talking about. It just goes down the line.
Why would they want to cover this up? Do they think that the American people are not ready, or the people in general is not ready to hear this information?
Let me ask you this. Why won't they turn loose the Kennedy assassination files? Everybody that's involved in it's dead. And this is, again, you got entities that receive billion-dollar contracts with the Pentagon that have huge cost overruns that we do not question. And when you do question, I question the spending at the Pentagon, and I'm labeled as unpatriotic. People here don't buy that. My dad fought in the Pacific. My mama flew an airplane during the Second World War, for goodness sake. She lost her brother fighting the Nazis. So go to somebody else when they want to throw that garbage at them. But it's a real issue, and it's imagine if you had some craft from outer space or something, just the scientific implications that would have. It would and you can go down the conspiracy tunnel pretty quick when you start talking about the energy source that these things have, that you could possibly heat homes in the winter and cool homes in the summer. And I tell you what, the Pentagon and the war pimps there would be out of business because we wouldn't be fighting wars over oil. They'd have to find another reason to fight wars. And all those billionaires that hold the barrel of oil over our heads like a dog trying to get a bone, they'd be out of business. And they'd have to get out and earn a living the rest of it.
Do you think these things are, what? Is it possible this could be technology of one of our adversaries on the world stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who could it be? Well, say if it was Russia. They wouldn't be bogged down this war in Ukraine. Putin with his ego, as I've stated many times, he'd land one on the steps of the White House, get out and probably ride a unicorn bare-chested across and wrestle the president and then get back in and head back out of Russia. And if it was China, come on, they'd control us. There wouldn't even be any question of they're controlling us. We wouldn't be worried about TikTok videos, I'll tell you that.
Well, the other thing that you hear a lot of people say is that they think, well, it's something that we are developing. What's your sense about that? Is that why they are reluctant at the Pentagon to talk about it? Because it's something that we are developing, reverse engineered stuff, perhaps?
It could be something that we've collected or crafted. I'm talking about archaeological finds and things, and more recent, like 1947 Roswell, or some of these other incidents that went on. But I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But there's a lot of reasons it could be. But until the government is more forthcoming with this information and quit hiding it, we'll never get to the bottom of it, because they've got it so compartmentalized, and the people involved in it long time ago are dead that knew all the answers, could put all the pieces together. So I think I think too, it's given some of the technology is being developed outside, reverse engineered, if you will, by corporations that have these multi-billion-dollar government contracts that we don't know what they're doing, or at least we in Congress don't, and then they're out of the reach of us by FOIA, which means Freedom of Information Act. If it's a government entity, we could allegedly, if you believe that they'll do what they're supposed to do, which most of them won't, but if they were, then we could easily access that information. But in the hands of a corporation that is a quasi-governmental entity or is completely 100% funding from the federal government, you would think we'd have some transparency there, but in reality, we do not.
I hear people say, I just don't believe it. Where are the great pictures? They hear the testimony of these pilots who I think are incredibly credible, and they say, well, no, I just can't buy it. What would you say to them?
I would say Google Tic-Tac videos, not Tic-Tac. Not TikTok like the Chinese Communist propaganda,
right.
But Tic-Tac breath mints. Google that. Listen to the audio, because I probably know who leaked that from the federal government. But it was put out, and the federal government said that didn't exist. And then when they saw it, it said, well, this is a fake. And then they had the audio of the pilot, and then they went and found the Navy pilot who'd retired, and who said, in fact, yes, that's him, and documented it. And now they say, yeah, it's real. We just don't know what they are. And that's where we're at.
What's the wildest story that you've heard since you've taken an interest in this particular topic?
Well, I've been, I was a kid reading about it. I'm 59 years old, riding my Schwinn Stingray banana peeler over to the library in Bearden and West Knoxville. But it was, I think some of the wildest stuff I've heard has been since then. People have come to me that I've known my whole life that, in fact, tell me about something that happened. And some of these people are in their 80s and have told me when they were in the military some things that went on. And I've been briefed at the house. People have brought things by. I've seen some things that you probably will never get to see. And I'm telling you, man, it's nothing of this world. And I don't know what.
When we've seen the TikTok and the Go Fast videos, you say you've seen other videos that you find very compelling?
Absolutely. And, and it's just, it's a lot like religion. There's a lot of different beliefs and what's going on in there. And I don't condemn anybody's. I have my own set of beliefs. I think it's, I think there's something from another world that's visiting here and how they get here. And, if you go out at night and look at the stars every night and the light from those stars literally left there before the time of Christ, or those stars even no longer exist anymore that you're viewing. I mean, that is the vastness of God's great universe. And
right.
We are just a sand in a million beaches. And if you think we're the best that God can do, I think you're pretty arrogant. So I can't comment on a lot of the stuff I've seen. I've seen what you've seen, and that's enough. That ought to be enough that the government just says, hey, here's the files. You all take a look at them. You can have them. We don't know what they are, and they need to quit with all the nonsense. The government, part of it too, is they don't think we can handle it, and that's not their business. That is not their business of deciding what's going to upset me or my family. And it's a secrecy thing, and it just needs to end.
Let me, before you go, I would be remiss if I did not ask you, what's going to happen with the government shutdown? Is it going to shut down, or is there going to, how's this vote going to go this evening?
Yeah, I think we'll probably end up with tonight won't be decide if we're going to have a shutdown or not, but that happens Saturday. But you got to realize we were on break the entire month of August. We do that every year, and we work from home. I actually work more from home, but we've had 20 government shutdowns since 1976, and they happen about every 2 or 3 years. The longest one lasted 34 days. That was the 2018-19 shutdown. The average length is about 8 days. Social security checks continue to go out, and all government workers receive full back pay. And my thing on this whole thing is we take in $5 trillion a year, yet we continue to spend $7 trillion, and that's by conservative estimates. And the Fitch rating agency, they actually downgraded our long-term foreign currency to AA plus from AAA. It's only the second time in history that's happened, and the reason they said it was they blamed a steady deterioration in standards of governance over the last 20 years, including on fiscal and debt matters. And they highlighted the general government deficit. And how can we continue to spend this kind of money? That's the argument. And why are we not doing like we do in the state of Tennessee in the legislature, vote on single issue bills instead of piling these omnibus packages up?
Right.
Because all they do, they just try to confuse the American public. And let me tell the American public this: all we're doing by passing a continued resolution is doing away with our sworn duty. Because we passed a 30-day one, and they'll tell you, we're going to pass this one so we won't ever have to pass one again. That's like telling a crackhead, I'm going to give you some crack cocaine to get you off of crack cocaine. It doesn't work. And then they pass it. We get up to Christmas, and what do they say? We need to pass this omnibus, which is just a compilation of continued resolutions. So we pass an omnibus bill, and it'll be 2,000 pages. The classic Nancy Pelosi, we got to pass it so we know what's in it. And then what congressmen do, they read down the first 5 pages, whatever, and you find, oh, there's my district. There's my money for my district. And then they vote for that. And then that's what they do. And then they don't care about the other 1,995 pages of garbage that are in there. Wow. And that's why we just passed the 32 trillion mark. We are $33 trillion in debt.
All right. Well, listen, I can't tell you, I know I've gone over a little bit here, but I really appreciate you joining us here to help us talk about the UAP thing and give us an update on what's happening there today. Congressman Tim Burchett of the 2nd Congressional District of Tennessee, thanks for joining us here on The Drive.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And please just keep telling the truth, brother. That's all you got to do. It'll be a good
all right, we'll try. All right, thank you. It is now we're way over 54 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. I want to tell you about T. King Insurance, King and Associates Insurance in Brentwood. They are an independent agency. They've been in business there for over 25 years. Now, when we say independent agency, you say, what's that all about? Well, it's an agency that, can pick and choose from a whole bunch of different kinds of policies so that you get a policy that is exactly right for you. They're not trying to take a square peg and shove it into a round hole. They can actually find something that really meets your needs. You don't get that when you deal with some of these other agencies on the internet, if you know what I mean. And here's the other thing about being an independent agency. Although they've been around for 25 years, very reliable, they're small enough that they can give you the customer service that you need. If you dial this number, 615-329-8121, you're going to get somebody on the phone. You're not going to get a recording. How often does that happen anymore? Multi-policy discounts can save you big money, 20, 25, 30, 35%. So what you need to do is get your stuff together and give the folks over at King & Associates a call. Get your royal review. Log on to tkinginsurance.com. King Assurance & Associates, royal treatment and great rates.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
One of the hardest things we see as we grow older into adulthood is that our parents and our other family members who are elderly, well, they're getting at an age where they struggle with the day-to-day things that were once so simple. It reminds us that they're approaching an age where they will need more and more help every day. And this is where assisted family care can help. They can connect you with a responsible, compassionate, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse of a widow or veteran, they could very well qualify for a little-known benefit to help cover those kinds of expenses. You see, many veterans are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may well qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. The application process is daunting and confusing, but assisted family care, they are there to help. Assisted family care will be there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
It's 5:01. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 88 degrees, sunny, clear skies on Music Row. The rest of the night should stay that way, but could see some scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow evening. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report, upcoming in 5 minutes. Some ongoing news that we're covering concerning former President Donald Trump. A New York judge decided today that Trump submitted fraudulent valuations for assets that were then used by himself, his eldest sons, and his business to obtain better loan and insurance terms. The judge's determination came as he granted partial summary judgment in New York Attorney General Letitia James's multi-million-dollar civil fraud lawsuit. The judge cites false and misleading square footage of Trump's Fifth Avenue apartment, among other faulty valuations. The judge said Trump and the other defendants have a propensity to engage in persistent fraud, severely undercutting the defense that Trump is going to offer when the case goes on trial next month. And in Virginia, police say they prevented a likely mass shooting today after someone saw suspicious posts on Instagram. Andy Field says they've arrested the suspect.
A woman browsing Instagram spotted a man who had made an online threat against a Haymarket, Virginia church and called police. The church identified the man, and officers arrested 35-year-old Rui Zhang outside that building with a loaded semi-automatic pistol and additional ammunition. They later found what is described as disturbing writings at his home. Police say the online tip likely prevented another mass shooting.
And according to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 470 mass shootings in the U.S. so far this year. And scientists reporting sea ice in Antarctica has hit an all-time low. Ines de la Catera.
Sea ice levels in Antarctica hitting a record low by a lot. The National Snow and Ice Data Center writing in a statement, quote, "There is some concern that this may be the beginning of a long-term trend of decline for Antarctic sea ice since oceans are warming globally and warm water mixing in the Southern Ocean polar layer could continue," end quote. Sea ice is key when it comes to protecting melting ice shelves and ice sheets. Less sea ice results in less sunlight being mirrored back to space, which ultimately leads to warmer waters and can have an impact on the surrounding ice and glaciers.
Crime right now in Tennessee. Channel 4 reports that a Nolensville daughter is undergoing mental testing after being accused of abusing her elderly mother. 52-year-old Julia Musil was charged in July after a sign was spotted on her window that read, quote, "Help 911. Her 77-year-old mom said that she had been held captive and was physically abused for at least a week. Musil was released on bond with a court appearance set for October 23rd. And some sports news. The Nashville Predators are back. Their preseason has begun. And with a new season comes a new menu at Bridgestone Arena. Channel 4 says that one of the new food items at the stadium is a Dr. Pepper glazed chicken sandwich. Another one of the items is banana pudding funnel cake fries. Bridgestone will also have specialty hot dogs for visiting teams, the San Jose dog, the Chicago dog, and so on. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and to hour number 3 of The Drive. It is 9 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. So glad you're with us. If you missed our interview with Representative Tim Burchett about the UAP situation, what used to be called UFOs, fascinating discussion. We'll replay that at 6:35. So a second chance to catch it if you came in the middle or you missed it completely. I think it was fascinating stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. I want to head down to the swamp if I could, and give you a look at some of the things that are going on there. You heard at the end of that interview, I asked Congressman Burchett about the vote that's supposed to take place this afternoon. That is, give us some indication of where Republicans are. Will they go forward to try to pass some bills? Some appropriation bills, and then maybe a short-term CR. Well, Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, talked about the plan earlier today on Capitol Hill.
Tonight we're back in session. We will vote on a rule to bring up 4 more appropriation bills. That'll be a total of 5 more than the Senate has been able to pass. In that, if we get through these next 4, that will be 72% of all the discretionary spending.
So he's hoping to have a plan there and then pass a CR. He's really irritated with the conservatives who are ready to shut down the government, and he doesn't mind saying so.
It'd be concerning to me that if there'd be people in the Republican Party that would take the position of President Biden against what the rest of the Americans want.
All right, so there we go. Here we go. McCarthy faces defining moment with GOP shutdown drama. The California Republican is facing explicit threats to his gavel and has no clear path through the blockade with less than a week to go to prevent a government shutdown. I just stop here for a moment. I think we're going to have a shutdown. I get the sense that they're bound and determined to have a shutdown, and I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. We even have some special music prepared for shutdowns when they occur. We'll be ready for that, because we're expecting it's probably going to happen. But a handful of holdouts have opposed any kind of short-term funding measure preventing the Speaker from passing a GOP-only stopgap before negotiating with Democrats. McCarthy so far has resisted finding a compromise with the Democrats. See, he could go to the other side of the aisle and say, look, I need your votes on this. And he had all the Democrats, or a fair number of Democrats, and a fair number of Republicans. He could get it passed even beyond the concerns of the conservatives. But the conservatives say, if you'd go around us like that, then we will challenge your speakership. We'll call for a vote to vacate the chair. And it has happened. McCarthy has already survived a series of threats to his speakership. But it's unclear, according to thehill.com, how he'll get out of this present jam. When you're negotiating here, everybody's king because one person can close it down, the Speaker acknowledged this weekend. Representative Patrick McHenry, an ally who helped McCarthy win the speakership vote on a 15th ballot in January, voiced confidence that his friend will clear his present hurdle and meet additional challenges ahead. The 3 breakpoints of the year, opening week, debt ceiling, and funding of the government, we're in the 3rd phase. The beauty for you, talking to reporters, is it will not end. We'll always have something to talk about. He also downplayed the shutdown fight, arguing it is less a serious problem than raising the debt ceiling earlier this year. A failure to extend the government's borrowing limit was widely seen as leading to an economic collapse. This is more complicated, but less existential. Yet McCarthy does face real threats to his Speaker House. Matt Gaetz has repeatedly warned that he could make a motion to vacate the chair, a move to force a vote on ousting McCarthy if the Speaker does not come into compliance on spending and other demands. He's not alone. Representative Eli Crane, Dan Bishop, had previously supported openness to supporting McCarthy's ouster. Tim Burchett said he would look strongly at supporting a move to oust McCarthy if the Speaker works with Democrats. I think our own Andy Ogles has said that he would be among those who would oppose the Speaker if he were to try to go around and work with Democrats. Mike Turner, Republican of Ohio, says, I'll bet on Kevin McCarthy any day. we have time to go, but it's a very difficult position. I don't think people understand what a tightrope this is for McCarthy. It truly is. If he goes one way, he avoids a government shutdown, but he irritates a tremendous number of conservatives and could end up losing his speakership. You remember, a vote to vacate the chair would require, pretty much all Republicans, save a few. I think he can only lose 5 votes or he would not be able to get the votes he needs. You need the 218 votes. And would Democrats help him? I don't know. Maybe they end up with a Democrat speaker. Who knows how this thing could play out? It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. I think, look, in about 15 minutes or so, they're going to take this first vote. It's not really the test vote, but you may get some sense of where this whole thing is at, because before they pass the bill, they have to pass the rule to get to the bill, and it's sort of considered a test vote. So we'll look at the numbers here. Maybe in about another 30, 40 minutes, we'll have some sense of whether or not McCarthy is going to, have support or not have support. We may get some, I don't know, we'll get the absolute answer, but we'll get some sense of it. Meanwhile, Republicans name witnesses for the first impeachment hearing. They kick off their first impeachment hearing Thursday with a trio of witnesses asking a forensic accountant, a former Justice Department tax attorney, and conservative legal scholar Jonathan Turley to weigh in on the business dealings of the Biden family. Led by the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, the hearing is titled The Basis for an Impeachment Inquiry of President Joseph R. Biden. It comes after Chairman James Comer told reporters last week it will not really be a covering of new ground, just sort of an update on where we are so far. Comer has alleged President Biden accepted a bribe as part of his dealings in Ukraine as vice president. Listen, I think this is important. I would like to see new ground covered, but you know what? In a story that honestly, when you look at it, it happens in incremental, bits. A little drip, a little drip, a little drip every day. Well, you don't keep up with, sooner or later you put enough drips into the bucket and you've got a whole bucket of water. And I think when you look at it and put together in a explanatory way, in a compelling way, what we know so far, it looks pretty bad. But unfortunately, we don't do that because, this is a story that we update incrementally every day. Let's take a moment to sort of say, you know what? We covered a lot of ground. Maybe you missed some of it, but when you put it all together, it's pretty compelling. And so I think that's a great idea to say, okay, this is step number 1. Where are we today? Step number 2, where do we need to go going forward in this impeachment inquiry? And will there be an impeachment? I think there probably will be. I think we're headed that way. I think there'll be a vote for it, and I think it will be sent over to the Senate for trial, where I don't think much will happen there. Republicans have claimed that Vice President Biden accepted a $5 million bribe in exchange for helping oust Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin over an investigation into Burisma, the Ukrainian gas company where Biden's son Hunter was a board member. The claim is based on an unverified tip to the FBI that the Bureau was unable to corroborate, with a confidential source relaying a conversation with Burisma owner saying he paid both Bidens. The selection of 2 of the 3 witnesses suggests the panel plans to go deep in reviewing Hunter Biden's business dealings. So that's going to be a thing to watch, and it happens Thursday on Capitol Hill. Other news, the Republicans have opened a probe into Biden's energy secretary after she made this road trip in an EV. Remember, we told you about this a few days ago, that the energy elf, Jennifer Granholm, the energy secretary, she looks like an elf. That's why I call her the energy elf. She tried to drive, for someplace actually ended up in, was it Chattanooga? I think it was Chattanooga. I can't remember, but she was coming to Tennessee, and it was all
been Memphis.
Might have been Memphis. I don't know. Yeah, may have been. I don't know. But she was driving into Tennessee on a electric car road trip, and at some point, It was a big stunt to show, well, electric cars are here, but they ran into huge problems. I mean, there was one thing that happened. Apparently, during the 4-day EV trip from North Carolina to Tennessee, Energy Department staffers used a car with an internal combustion engine to block off an EV charger. See, they were doing advance work. They were ahead of the secretary. They knew she was going to have to charge up, and there weren't enough chargers to go around, and a lot of people stacked up trying to use them. So they put their gas-powered car in front of the charger to block it. They were charger blockers is what they were, and they said, and then the people who wanted to charge their car so they get on down the highway got upset and called police. Said, they've got a gas car in front of the charger, and there are people waiting, and they say that no, that they can't move the car. Well, they were basically trying to save a slot for the Secretary of Energy, and now because the police were called and the Republicans think it was a big waste of money to put on this little dog and pony show, they're requesting documents and information to understand, quote unquote, the purposes, costs, and consequences of your summer 2023 EV road trip. Oh, we await this one. This will be fun. 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans, they start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits, free basic labs for the entire year, and because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. If you were to marry this with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or the next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice, and it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toaster Music City year after year after year. And the folks at Grace Point want you to know that they understand there are some new COVID going around, new variants of COVID going around. They provide testing and treatment that can help you get over it quickly. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Today, former President Donald Trump lost a major part of his taxes and business civil in a fraud case in New York. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett joins WT in the Drive to talk a government shutdown, plus a shortage of pumpkin patches. That and more 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's time once again for a fan favorite, Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports, and now here is the host of our program. Well, it's Mac Morey. Yay! Woo! The crowd goes wild. Well, listen, this is becoming rapidly a fan favorite where, Mac Morey comes in, he talks, he does the news. He's so confident. He does a great job, but he has a passion for sports, and we love to tap into that. So, Mac, what are we talking about today?
That's exactly right. I just got an itch for sports, got to get it out, and this is a perfect segment for me, Brian. So today we're talking about something that's been kind of trending in the Nashville area for a while, but obviously just kind of reheated back up in the news line of Nashville possibly being a 5-sport city, getting the Memphis Grizzlies over to Memphis. And then, of course, the conversation has been heating up over the past few years about an MLB team coming to Nashville.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's only a few, I think there's 10 in the United States, 10 cities that have 5 major league sports. So Nashville could be the 11th, which would be pretty prestigious group, and it would be pretty cool. Obviously, it would bring revenue and a different aspect to the economy locally. So I think there's obviously some pros and some cons here, but just real quick throwing it out there. I mean, what would you guys say to the Grizzlies coming over to Nashville and then a pro baseball team?
I would have absolutely no problem with it. I mean, I think it's obviously the basketball would be a lot easier to integrate into Nashville because we have Bridgestone Arena.
Oh, yeah,
that
would be
there.
easy right there.
That would be simple. The MLB franchise, obviously, that's another story because they'd have to build a park for it because First Tennessee Park, although it's a fabulous ballpark, it's a minor league ballpark
for sure
in scale.
Yeah, that's right.
So they'd need a bigger one. And I was just looking to see if anything had been mentioned about this. And they actually have got a location that they've kind of picked out, I'd say, if they were going to build it. It's over on the northwest side of Nashville, right off of Interstate 40 near TSU. There's a spot right there along the Cumberland River that they have kind of designated. I don't know if this is anything official or not, but I did see that referenced in several stories.
I wonder why you wouldn't put it downtown, though. For example, you're going to have to take down Titan Stadium when you build the new one. I mean, eventually that will come down. Yeah. I guess it's because you need parking down there, I suppose. I guess that's the real problem.
Well, and keep in mind, they're doing a development of a whole kind of a Titan City sort of thing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. But, I mean, of course, there's nothing more enjoyable. I mean, I remember I was in Washington, D.C. When I first arrived in Washington, D.C. in 1986, they said, I think we're going to get a Major League Baseball team. and it was years and years and years and years before the Washington Nationals, finally became a reality. And then they built a baseball stadium there, and it really redeveloped a whole section of Washington, D.C., which was sort of downtrodden. And it really brought it back to life, and it was a big thing. Economically, it was a win. For the town, it was a win. And, there's nothing better than on an afternoon, to get a hot dog and some popcorn and some peanuts and a good cold beer and sit down and watch a baseball game in person. It's so much fun. It's part of the whole experience of baseball is not only watching a good game, but also, sort of hanging out and watching it in real life while you're consuming food that's bad for your heart.
Yeah, it is an experience for sure. Now, it's interesting. They've been talking about the baseball thing for a while, but I had not heard this about the Grizzlies possibly relocating to Nashville until you brought it up, I think, a couple weeks ago. Behind the scenes. Is that actually being talked about?
Well, I guess less officially than the baseball thing, but there's a very popular sports podcast from a former NBA player where he has other former players and active players, and they were just talking about expansion that is going to happen in the NBA in the next 5-10 years. Right. They're going to expand. They want a team in Seattle. They want a team in Las Vegas. And then past that, they're looking for other cities. And the one that they all brought up and they talked about for a while was just have Memphis move. All the players were talking about how much they love Nashville. The scene is there. They want to go there.
A choice between Memphis and Nashville.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. It's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. That'd be very cool. Well, I mean, the sports thing, I don't have a problem with the whole idea. No doubt, whoever comes in is going to want a stadium. They're going to want and
money
not
is the big thing.
basketball, but rather definitely with baseball, they're going to have a stadium, and that's going to be a thing. But you know what? I really do believe that when you do these things, these projects, that there's enough payback over time.
I agree.
That you definitely get your money back. I'm not opposed to spending state dollars if there is going to bring tax revenue and real income to the city, and certainly that has proven to be true over time with the Titans, and I think it would be true with baseball and basketball as well.
Yeah, Predators, great fan base. Titans, great fan base. Why not? Let's go. Let's add some more. Nashville SC, come on.
All right, we've sealed the deal. That's it. It's happening. Bring it on.
All right, on that note, it's time for Mac Maury to put on his other hat and do the news. It's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7.
.531, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 87 degrees on Music Row. Some possible showers and thunderstorms to come tomorrow night. The rest of tonight should stay clear. Complete forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Former President Trump today lost a major part of his tax and business civil fraud case in New York. Andy Field has details.
A judge deciding Donald Trump, his adult sons, and other defendants committed fraud by inflating the value of their properties, including his Mar-a-Lago estate, golf courses, and other buildings, by anywhere from $800 million to more than $2 billion. The judge saying Mr. Trump inflated numbers to trick banks and insurance companies into giving him better terms. The judge immediately canceled Mr. Trump's New York business certificate, making it tougher for him to do business there.
And Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett joined WTN's The Drive today and said he does think there will be a government shutdown come Saturday when they make that decision. He also gave some history on shutdowns in the nation.
We've had 20 government shutdowns since 1976, and they happen about every 2 or 3 years. The longest one lasted 34 days. That was the 2018-19 shutdown. The average length is about 8 days. Social security checks continue to go out, and all government workers receive full back pay.
And Congressman Burchett continued to say that his whole issue with this is that the nation takes in around $5 trillion a year, but spends $7 trillion every year. And pumpkins are a big part of fall festivities, including Halloween and Thanksgiving. But this year, your pumpkin display could be a little smaller. Michelle Franzen explains why.
The arrival of fall ushering in all things pumpkin, from lattes to pie. But farmers from New Jersey to Texas say extreme weather, from heat to too much rain, has affected the harvest. Nathan Hike is owner of Hike Farms in Paducah, Kentucky.
We went out probably a month ago. It's just the blooms weren't opening and we couldn't hardly find any pumpkins.
Problems at the pumpkin patch that could impact the hunt and prices for jack-o'-lanterns this Halloween.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Busy Bee, when you need heat or cold AC, this is the number to call, 775-7833. And, it's really probably likely that this time of year you're going to need your heater for a while, and you may still need your air conditioner because, it's cold at night and cool at night for sure, and warmer during the day. So if you have a problem, just call them at that number, 775-7833, and they'll buzz right over and get you up and running. You're going to think about becoming a Beehive member, I hope, because I am, and I think it's a great deal. What is it? Well, you get 3 maintenance services on your systems, 1 aimed at heating, 1 aimed at cooling, 1 aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, just call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. Tuesday, September 26th, Tuesday. We're watching to see what happens on the floor of the House here in a few minutes when they take a test vote to see, if you give us some indication of how the week is going to go. If it was important for you to prepare, and I don't know why it would be, I think, you might get ready for a government shutdown. It seems to me like this is a real possibility, but we'll have some sense of it. Certainly by tomorrow it should reveal itself whether or not McCarthy's going to have the votes to go forward with his plan. Very quickly, just here is his plan, and you have to listen carefully because the microphones were not close up when he spoke.
Tonight we're back in session. We will vote on a rule to bring up 4 more appropriation bills. That'll be a total of 5 more than the Senate has been able to pass. In that, if we get through these next 4, that will be 72% of all the discretionary spending.
And then his idea is to put forward a continuing resolution that would give them time to work on the rest of it. However, there are a great number of conservatives in the House of Representatives who are not enamored with that idea. And they say if McCarthy tries to go around him and get Democrats to help him pass a continuing resolution, they will come after his speakership. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff, as politics go. Republicans in the House, still a House divided. There's no doubt about that. But I think the end result is, pretty good chance there's going to be a government shutdown. I don't think it matters. Maybe you're not going to be able to get your passport, taken care of in short order. But you know what? Last time I checked, it's hard to get a passport approved even when the government is operating. Apparently it takes months and months and months. So, are they going to close down a few national parks? Yeah, they will. And they'll be all these Democrat sob stories about how government is not going to be. Honestly, you're going to get your Social Security check. You're going to get your all of your social services are going to be there. They're not going to cut that out. It's just simply, I think, a way to sort of maybe force a thought toward a more conservative spending approach. And if we have to shut down the dadgum government to come up with a more conservative plan for spending our taxpayer dollars, I'm all for it. I'm 1,000% for it. So, again, with everything, if you want to have a little, movement in that area, you need to be ready to put up with a little pain. And that may come in the form of a government shutdown, which largely will not impact you at all. And you say, well, poor federal workers. No. Yeah, I mean, they're going to get paid and made whole when the government finally does reopen. Congressman Burchett said the longest one's 34 days. And average is about 8 days. So I think that's fine. Okay, if that's what it takes to bring some sanity to the whole process, I'm okay. Meanwhile, economic news that is going to hurt the Biden administration as they head into an election year is everywhere. I mean, the economy, all of the signs are flashing yellow and red. This story I just came across. Target said today that it will close 9 stores in major cities across the country, citing violence, theft, and organized retail crime. The company will close 1 store in New York City's Harlem neighborhood, 2 locations in Seattle, 3 stores in San Francisco, and 3 more in Portland. What do all those cities have in common? Let me think. Oh, my. What could it be? What could it be? I think we all know what it is. They're all blue-run cities with blue politics, and they do not enforce the law, and that's why Target is pulling out. Wow. I mean, I bet they would rather, stay in business and make some money. But if you can't overcome the retail theft problem and the crime and the violence, then maybe it's time to pull out. I think they are going to. This is going to be the first of many. Many other companies are looking at the situation in places that are run by blue city mayors, and they're ready to get out. They're ready to go do something else. The losses are just too great. They can't make any money, and most businesses are in business to make $1 or $2. Other news that I think are really going to continue to be problems for the Democrats: bankruptcy filings spiked in 2023 under the Biden administration, and you should expect more financial chaos to come. This, according to the Daily Caller. Data released Tuesday showed Americans filed more than 39,000 bankruptcy cases in August of 2023, an 18% increase from the same time last year. The data released by a group called Unusual Whales details how, I don't know why they called it that, details how long, along with personal bankruptcy filings, there were more than 41,600 new bankruptcy cases recorded in August. Wow. That including for businesses. This marks the 30th consecutive month that bankruptcy filings have shown a year-over-year increase under the Biden administration's embarrassing and dangerous economic policies. Wow. 13 months where bankruptcies have been bigger than the year before. That's the wrong direction. You see, as we head toward election time, what is it that drives people to vote for one candidate or another? Well, if James Carville is right, it's the economy, stupid, and I think he's right. People vote their pocketbooks. If they're doing well, you're going to get their support. If you're not doing well and you're the incumbent, you're not going to get the support. And I think that the thing is going so far in the wrong direction that this is really, really bad news for the Democrats. And I hate that we have to endure it, but it really does seem to bolster the chances of Republicans in the next election cycle, it seems. Americans finally starting to feel the sting from the Fed's rate hikes. You know, it's a maddening cycle. It's like watching, flushing the toilet and watching everything go down the drain. You start out by saying we have a problem with inflation. Why do we have a problem with inflation? Well, largely it had to do with gas prices the first time around. It probably will the second time around as well. So you got inflation. Well, what can you do about inflation? The only tool that the Fed has is to raise interest rates. So you have to hurt the economy in another direction in order to get rid of inflation. I guess of the two, inflation or high interest rates, they figure everybody suffers from inflation and not everybody, needs to get a house loan. So, better to go after the inflation by raising the interest rates. That is supposed to cool the economy. However, if you have another round of inflation caused by, I don't know, some of the predictions are we're headed for $150 a barrel oil, which will cause gas and diesel prices to go up. That caused inflation in the first round. Are we in for another round? I think we are. And so inflation causes the interest rates to go up. The interest rates, make it very difficult on people who, are trying to get home loans or have had to stack up stuff on credit cards because they're really having a hard time making ends meet. It's just a vicious cycle. The inflation leads to the highest interest rates. The higher interest rates make it difficult for people to be able to buy things, and the difficulty in buying things adds to inflation, which then causes them. I mean, you see the cycle. It's you go around and around and around and around, round and round and round. She goes where she stops. Nobody knows. Boy, that was a dated reference. And so there you go. Americans finally starting to feel the sting from the Fed's rate hikes. Consumers in the market for loans to buy homes and cars are discovering that because of the Federal Reserve's rate increases, their money gets them a lot further down the pathway than they did a few years ago. Those with credit cards and other loans that carry rates pegged to broader benchmarks are finding that they have gotten much more expensive. I love the story here about Daniel Waddell. Started looking for a new home. Mortgage rates kept ticking up. He eventually bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. Not a big house, not a massive home. And he got a mortgage rate of about 6.5%. But it's a $2,600 monthly mortgage payment. The 25-year-old consultant would like to buy a new car, but can't because the house costs too much. He's driving a car that the couple's been driving since they were in college. He puts off that purchase as long as he can. But how long can you put off a purchase? I mean, at some point, an old car starts to cost you more than it's worth, and you've got to go out and find a new car. But how can you do that if you are paying too much for your mortgage payment because interest rates have gone up? And by the way, interest rates on new cars have gone up as well. Man, I'm telling you, interest rates, it makes it difficult. The typical consumer's debt burden remains relatively modest because so many people locked in low rates on mortgages or car loans before the Fed started raising the numbers. But since then, a lot of people are finding it impossible to buy a home or to buy a car or to pay their credit card bills. It goes on and on and on. So interest rates are the thing that are going to go up again. We've been told by the Fed, look for one more hike in interest rates this year. And I think with the high price of oil and gas going up, it's going to be more inflation, and we're probably in for some interest rate hikes next year as well. I don't think we're in for a soft landing. I think we're in for a V-shaped recovery. It came down, but now I think it's going to go back up. It is 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, when was the last time you went to Legend Steakhouse for one of their great steaks or one of their great meals? Well, you know, if you're headed home right now, just go by one of their 5 convenient locations. I think you'll find a restaurant that meets your needs somewhere near you. Just go to legendsteakhouse.com, and they'll give you the information on where the nearest one is if you don't know. But they'd like you to think of them beyond just dinner time. Think about them for lunch. They've got a meat and 2 situation going on at all of the Legend Steakhouse. Country cooked vegetables and casseroles are your 2, and the meats include fried pork chops, smoky mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow cooked pot roast with gravy. Listen, this is old-fashioned home cooking the way Mama used to cook it. In fact, these recipes came from Johnny Fleeman's mom. He borrowed them from his mother over 30 years ago and never gave them back. And get this, every Legend Steakhouse has a drive-up kiosk so you can order out if you prefer. Legend Steakhouse has multiple locations across Middle Tennessee. We're not the fanciest place on the block, but they serve great food at a fair price. In Davidson County, check out the Smyrna location, just off Almaville Road, open 7 days a week for lunch and for dinner. Go to legendsteakhouse.com for locations, online menu ordering. A local Tennessee company, been in business for 34 years. You're going to enjoy your next visit to Legend Steakhouse.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. You know, think about it, when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
You know, there are a lot of diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are correct and accurate, and not all pills are good for you. Hey, it's Brian Wilson, and when you get a diagnosis for a European auto repair, you should get a second opinion before you make a major decision. Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could not only save your vehicle's life, it could save you from a lot of stress that ruins your entire weekend. Life's too short to get stressed out and angry. Be happy and go to Eurofix. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. Not high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their new facility in Mount Juliet. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Six o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 85 degrees in Nashville. Expecting some possible showers and thunderstorms tomorrow evening, but tonight should remain clear. Weather forecast, latest traffic report. Headed your way 5 minutes. A New York judge decided today that former President Donald Trump submitted fraudulent valuations for assets that were then used by himself, his eldest sons, and his business to obtain better loan and insurance terms. The judge's determination came as he granted partial summary judgment in New York Attorney General Letitia James's multi-million-dollar civil fraud lawsuit. The judge cites false and misleading square footage of Trump's Fifth Avenue apartment, among other faulty valuations. The judge said Trump and the other defendants have a propensity to engage in persistent fraud, severely undercutting the defense that Trump will offer when the case goes on trial next month. And in the nation's capital, Senate leaders have announced an agreement on a stopgap funding measure that would stave off a shutdown that would otherwise start on Sunday. Stephen Portnoy.
The Senate bill would fund government agencies through mid-November, avoiding a shutdown that would start this weekend. It would also set aside billions in new support for Ukraine and for disaster relief here at home. It's likely to clear the Senate on a bipartisan basis, and it probably would in the House as well. But Speaker Kevin McCarthy remains under intense pressure from his right flank to not put any short-term spending bill on the floor, particularly if it keeps spending levels where they are and also includes new money for Ukraine.
Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that a Nolensville daughter is undergoing mental testing after being accused of abusing her elderly mother. 52-year-old Julia Musil was charged in July after a sign was spotted on her window that read, "Help, 911." Her 77-year-old mom said that she had been held captive and was physically abused for at least a week. Musil was released on bond, and a court date has been set for October 23rd. And some money news. The Federal Trade Commission taking aim at Amazon, and now the tech giant firing back. Mike Dubusky.
Amazon says the lawsuit represents a fundamental misunderstanding of retail and says that if successful, the action would raise prices and extend shipping times for Amazon customers. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's among the 17 state AGs filing the lawsuit alongside the FTC, says Amazon needs to be held accountable for using its dominant place in the market to disadvantage consumers by prioritizing its own products and stifling competition.
In entertainment news, extra dates have been added to a country music superstars tour. Nashville's included.
Morgan Wallen is extending his One Night at a Time tour into 2024. 10 additional stadium shows, including Nissan Stadium. Concert set for May 2nd. It's going to include special guests Bailey Zimmerman, Nate Smith, Lauren Watkins. Access to tickets at morganwallen.com. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. The time for the fourth and final hour of this drive, this extravaganza we call the drive, for this Tuesday, September 26th. We got some good stuff here for you this hour. In case you missed it, we had an interview with Congressman Tim Burchett in the 4 o'clock hour where he talked about one of my favorite topics, the mysterious UAPs. What are they? What's going on? He's actually part of it's a bipartisan thing, really. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. I mean, people on both sides of the aisle want to know the answers to what these things are. These unidentified aerial phenomenon, or what we used to call UFOs. He's trying to get answers from the Pentagon, and it's been very frustrating, and it's a pretty compelling interview. We'll play that starting at 6:35 here on Super Talk in just a few minutes. In the meantime, I want to talk about the 2024 elections, because tomorrow, I guess, what is it? Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow, the 7 wannabes who would like to be president of the United States on the Republican side of the equation will have their second debate on Fox Business, Fox News. It'll be seen on Fox News. And there are 7 people who made the debate stage. No surprises there. Just about everybody you thought was going to make it is going to make it. And they will once again have a debate, and it doesn't matter. It's like, remember that old show, Chris? We used to call it, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Mm-hmm. Where they would say where the rules are made up and the points don't matter.
Points don't matter, yeah.
The points don't matter. Well, that's the way this debate is. There's nothing about this that is going to change the outcome, except that you maybe look at some of these folks and say, he'd make a pretty good running mate for Trump. I mean, Trump is so far ahead. I don't see any scenario right now where any of these candidates can overcome Trump. Unless something happens on the horizon that I can't foresee, you'd say, well, what about all these charges against Trump and these cases that are pending? Doesn't matter. I mean, every time there's been another charge brought against Trump, the numbers have gone up. Between 30 and 50 points you have to make up if you want to beat Trump. And nobody is going to do that, the way it looks to me. In fact, here's a story about, the debate that's going on. Republicans will descend on California this week for the second presidential debate and speeches. On the ground, it's a snoozer with Trump ascendant. That's right, because, I mean, even in California, Trump is doing well in the polls. And, yeah, he's doing better and weller. He's doing very well in the polls, and nobody can touch him. I mean, it's Trump, and then there's everybody else. And the question is, why does this debate even going forward? Well, I guess, we need to look at the bench, and I think we need to look at somebody who might be a running mate. I think it really is more of a beauty contest for the number 2 position with Trump. If, everybody up for that position, with the possible exception of Mike Pence. We'll take a look at that. So that's going to happen tomorrow. Who will be 7 candidates who qualified? Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Chris Christie, and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. He with the outrageous eyebrows. So they're going to be on the stage. We'll all watch it. It'll be fun. I'll bring you the sound the next day. But it really, honestly, it doesn't change anything. I don't see, could somebody have a good moment? Yeah. But what does that mean? Does that good moment get them 50 points? I just don't think so. All right. Now let's turn to the Democrat side of the equation. There's a story that came down on Axios that is really getting a lot of buzz in Washington. And the reason it's getting buzz is, Democrats actually read Axios. And so, it's not very, very positive about Biden. And so, the Democrats are all up in arms about this story. And I'm going to read you because I have it here in my hand. Scoop, Biden's team, don't let him trip mission. President Biden and his campaign are working on a critical project for his reelection bid. Make sure he doesn't trip. Driving the news as voters express deep concerns about the 80-year-old president's age and fitness for office, Biden's team is taking extra steps to prevent him from stumbling, literally stumbling in public, as he did in June when he tripped over a sandbag at the Air Force Academy and went down like a ton of bricks. With the physical therapist, Biden has been doing exercises to improve his balance. Since his stumble in June, he's been wearing tennis shoes more often to avoid slipping and using the short stairs on Air Force One. Entering the plane on a lower deck. See, they usually roll up a big staircase that goes all the way up to the top level, where the president's office is on Air Force One, where the briefing room is. There's a little office for them to have meetings and stuff, and it's where his bedroom is. I mean, that's where he'll end up, but they're not letting him walk up the big stairs. He has to walk up the short retractable stairs, because it takes him into the belly of the aircraft. And then, well, I guess their thinking is, fewer steps, fewer chances for him to fall. And if he falls, it's on the inside where we can't see it, because there will be no cameras showing pictures of the president falling down a spiral staircase as he goes upstairs to his office. And even though I'm not making this up, I swear I'm not making this up. Go back and check the tape. Even though he's using the lower stairs with fewer steps, I swear, almost fell today coming down the short stairs. It almost happened. Why it matters, Democrats, including some of the administration, are terrified that Biden will have a bad fall, with a nightmare scenario of it happening in the weeks before the November 2024 election. Some senior Democrats privately been frustrated with Biden's advance team for months, citing the sandbag incident and noting that the president often appears to not know which direction to go after he speaks at the podium. It's every time. It happens every single time. He finishes his speech, he looks up, and he just seems confused. Do I go left? Do I go right? He's looking around for guidance. You need to, it's like somebody from the staff has to sit in the back with one of those big traffic arrows, blinking to the left or blinking to the right, so he'll know which way to go.
I was thinking like the cones that the guys on the runway at the
yes, that's right. The guys with the flags. That's right. That'd be awesome. Oh, that'd be something. But I mean, he really has some problems, and it's causing him, Democrats, great concern. The last thing they want is for the president of the United States to take another fall, especially in the days leading up to the election. Because people already think that he's too old to run. This was a point that was made by James Carville recently as he appeared with Bill Maher. On Bill Maher's, he's got a sort of I don't know, what do you call it? It's a new talk show. It's two guys sitting in a chair, smoking cigars and drinking, and basically talking about what's going on in the world. And so Carville, who as a Democrat, I really like him. You know why? Because he'll just tell you what he really thinks. We've had to do some creative editing on this because it was as you might imagine on cable TV, it was a very colorful conversation. But here's what Carville had to say about the current president of the United States and the polls.
I don't like when people take one poll and extrapolate too much from it, but I've seen the last 8 polls are all the same. 73 to 77% of the country does not want Biden to run again. I'm just round after 75. Right. Okay. That's a big number, man.
That's a big number.
Yeah, it is a big number. And by the way, Carville had some great comments about the loony left, the extreme left wing of the Democrat Party, and some of the nutty ideas that he says they come up with.
The identity left are silly. They're not evil. They're just goofy. They have the original word woke, and I did some research on this. The first time that people think it came up was a black jazz musician who was born around Shreveport, died in a jail in Houston. And the word was to denote that black people need to be woke in their interactions with the police.
I've heard that also.
Which seemed like a good idea. That's what they call in the military, situational awareness.
Absolutely.
And then what happened was overeducated coastal white people got a hold of the word, and as they do everything else, they completely fucked it up and pissed everybody in the country off.
Now you're speaking my language.
And if we just could get the humanities faculty at Amherst to shut the fuck up, we'd be a lot better off.
I told you there was some creative editing there.
We still got the gist of it, though. Yeah.
You got the gist of what he was saying, but we versed those key words so that it comes out backwards. That's our take. Some people bleep them. I like to just reverse them.
Yeah, I think it's more effective.
You get the rhythm, you get the sense of what they were saying, even though we can't literally say those words, but when you say them backwards, they mean nothing. Sort of like the Republican debate tomorrow. Means nothing. All right, I'll move on. Kamala Harris is incompetent and unqualified and the worst vice president in 40 years, according to a brutal poll conducted by the Daily Mail. So that a lot of people say, maybe they should get rid of Kamala Harris because, what is the concern about Biden? It's his age, okay? A lot of Democrats would feel better about voting for Biden if there was a number two queued up who actually, had some brain cells working, someone who could, carry on in a respectable way, should Biden, not make it. I don't wish any ill on the president, but he's 80 years old. Okay, I mean, just look at the actuarial tables. So, so the question is, okay, what's going on with Kamala? How do people feel about Kamala? She is viewed as the worst vice president in decades, according to an exclusive poll, as pressure grows on Joe Biden to pick a new running mate. Some 40% of respondents placed her ahead of Republican Mike Pence and Dick Cheney as the worst recent holders of the office. When asked to pick a word to summarize the vice president, respondents picked incompetent, far ahead of complimentary words such as smart and strong. And if that wasn't clear enough, almost half of the 1,000 people surveyed said Biden should swap out his running mate for 2024, including 27% of Democrats and a quarter, 25% of black respondents. Let's just go through this. Kamala Harris is viewed as the worst vice president of recent years, and they gave everybody a list, and they say, who's the worst? Kamala, 40%. Mike Pence, 17%. Dick Cheney, 17%. Dan Quayle, who was roundly ridiculed as George H.W. Bush's vice president, although I think it was unfair. I knew Dan Quayle a little, and I thought he was a pretty bright guy. But he came in at 7%. Joe Biden, back when he was Barack Obama's vice president, comes in at 7%, right there with Dan Quayle. George H.W. Bush fared pretty well. 2% said he was the worst. Al Gore, just 1% said he was the worst. 8% did not know. But by a large margin, when asked, 1,000 people said, 40% of them said that Kamala Harris was by far the worst vice president in recent years. In the eyes of the voters, if there's anyone more incompetent than President Biden, it's his vice president, said James Johnson, co-founder of Republican polling firm JLP. Frankly, this is one of the most brutal word clouds. They happen to do a word cloud where they put the words in there and what people used. Have you ever seen a word cloud? You know how those things work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Incompetent, idiot, stupid, unqualified are some of the biggest words in the word cloud. It's bad. It's bad for the Democrats right now. And we have some other stories. We'll hit them again tomorrow maybe, but the Democrats are also terrified about a third-party candidacy because they feel like it will draw from Biden and not really hurt Trump. 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let's talk about Rhino Shield. Maybe as the temperatures, they still got pretty nice daytime temperatures. Maybe you want it in the fall before it gets too cold. Put on a coat of paint on your house. I'm going to recommend that you do not paint your house. That's right. If you paint it, it'll look good for a little while. You know that. But then it's going to do what paint does. It's going to crack. It's going to chip. It's going to peel. And it won't be long before you have to paint it again. But if you called the folks at Rhino Shield, you wouldn't have to think about painting your house for another 25 years, a full quarter century. Rhino Shield is not really paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. It's infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. And that's why they can offer a 25-year warranty. I said a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks of Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation. They care deeply about doing quality work. My friends, the Garretts, have a 100-year-old, I think more than a 100-year-old farmhouse out in the country, and they brought the folks over at Rhino Shield over to paint their home. So satisfied were they that they're lining them up for a couple of more projects. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, why don't you give Clay Morris a call at 615-474-1729. That's 615-474-1729. Learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com. Well, the situation on the border continues to just devolve and devolve. And, this is you talk about something that's going to impact the elections. This is, I think, one that's going to impact the elections in a very big way. Because, Republicans and conservatives are really not happy with what's happening on the border. We haven't been for some time. But now it's, there are a great number of Democrats who are not happy about what's happening on the border. Down on the border, these Democrat mayors, like Rolando Salinas, He's a Democrat mayor from Eagle Pass. He's not happy with what's happening there.
We need bigger action, better action from our federal government and the Mexican government as well. It's impacting our safety, it's impacting our economy. It's just a mess.
It's a mess, and he says it's unacceptable what's been happening. And he's begging the Biden administration to shut down the borders. They're not going to do that, of course. Here's Mayor Oscar Leeser of the city of El Paso, also a Democrat.
And the team here in El Paso has done an incredible job. The city, the county, we all work together to make sure that we provide a bed and a warm meal for everyone. And but we are at a breaking point. We're running out of hotels. We're running out of space. And when I talked to Chief Owens from the Border Patrol, he told us to prepare for about 2,000 crossings a day. So that's something we're preparing for. We actually went out and bought a school that had been closed for about 3-4 years, and we're going to prepare that for an emergency shelter. That school's on 19 acres, and we're going to sit there, and half of it will be completely apart, will be an emergency sheltering service, and the other half will be an animal services where we'll have an animal park out there, and they'll be able to come walk a dog, sit there and play with a dog, so it helps them with mental health.
They're gonna use an old school. First of all, let's just dissect that for a moment. First of all, he says that they're at a breaking point, and that's one thing. But the second thing, they are taking an old school and they're going to make it a migrant center where they can house the people who've come across the border illegally. So can you imagine? Most schools are in neighborhoods. They're not downtown. They're in neighborhoods. And so can you imagine you're in that neighborhood and all of a sudden down the street they're going to turn the school that they closed down recently into a migrant center to house all the migrants, put them in cots in the gymnasium, I guess. I don't know how that's going to work, but I mean, that's what they're going to do. And then on top of all that, half of the land, it's 19 acres, they're going to turn it into as I understand it, a dog park for the illegal immigrants. I mean, they didn't bring their dogs with them. So they're going to provide a park and provide dogs so they can go on dog walks and throw the ball and flip the Frisbee. Okay. I would again, I would rethink that, but okay, let's let that go. Perennial dumping ground, Biden's border crisis has Democrats playing defense ahead of blue state elections. You see, it's not just the people on the border, and it's not just conservatives. It is big city mayors who are really up in arms. And the people who are paying the taxes in the big cities, most of them are Democrats, they're up in arms. How does this work for the Biden administration? I mean, they're doing it for very crass political reasons. Joe Biden wants people to come across the border because he eventually wants to find a pathway to citizenship and bring on a bunch of new Democrat voters. He's trying to change the election demographics of the nation, and he's doing so by allowing, since he became president, to allow 7.2 million people to come into this country illegally. 7.2 million. That's more people than live in the entire state of Tennessee. And they're landing many of them in big cities. And big city mayors are upset. Listen to this. Democrat lawmakers in New Jersey rejecting a Biden administration proposal to house migrants. They're upset. They said, hey, you got the problem in New York. Don't send it out here to New Jersey. We don't want to deal with it. 30 minutes now, past the hour. Hey, a question for you. How you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance. It starts with a phone call, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will ask you for some information, and they'll take it from there. You really don't have anything to lose except for all the worry that you have. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with the confidence that you're on the right path. Again, that number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. We've got a few more minutes before we wrap it up and hand it over to Mark Levin, who kicks off right after 7 o'clock. Earlier in the program today, 2nd Congressional District Republican Tim Burchett from the state of Tennessee was our special guest. And not only is he a Tennessee congressman, he is someone who has been very interested in something that we're interested here on this show. What about these UAPs, these UFOs? What are they? And we ask him because he is one of the people on Capitol Hill trying to find out in a bipartisan way what it is the Pentagon knows about all this. One gets the sense that he's just as concerned about the UAPs as he is about the Pentagon, who doesn't seem to want to pass up any information on this. Here's Congressman Burchett from earlier.
I think what bothers me most about it is the fact since 1947 they've said these things don't exist. Now you're seeing polling data showing that 60% or more of the American public believes that there's something else out there. And now all of a sudden, the Pentagon, NASA, everybody, the war pimps at the Pentagon, everybody's wanting money to study these things. That should disturb you because the Pentagon loses billions of dollars a year, allegedly, black projects, black ops kind of things. They also have never passed an audit. Yet Chuck Schumer has put in the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, an amendment that just says if there is anything dealing with UFOs, UAPs, et cetera, that it should go through a clearinghouse. So if it has any national security implications, then it doesn't need to be released. Well, there you go. More money for the Pentagon to just release the files. And all they're doing is putting up another barrier between us and the public. You know, we had expert testimony. We had pilots, best in the world, Navy pilots. My goodness, the best there is. They said they took an oath. They held up their hand and said, yes, in fact, we chased these objects. They hovered for long periods of time. They did maneuvers that we know of nothing on this earth that's capable of it. And the human couldn't withstand the G-force pressure. It would literally liquefy them. And so, here we are again, trying to get a committee meeting. We're thrown up every roadblock imaginable, just from staff members, our own party, the other party, just, the swamp in general. And we get a committee and it gets too big. It was one of the largest attended committee meetings in the last 15 years. People came from all over the country on their own dime. And guess what? We asked for another committee, a select committee, so we would have, in fact, subpoena powers. It would give us a little more power than just the standard run-of-the-mill type situation. Well, the speaker told me no, and I asked him why. He said, well, we've kind of stepped up. Basically what he said was, can't remember exactly, that we stepped on the toes of the Intelligence Committee, which is kind of a little fraternity. They keep stuff amongst themselves, and they just leak it out to the leadership when they need to. And, you basically get on that committee when you are when you've raised a whole lot of money for the caucus or the conference.
Do you believe, like many people do believe, that these things are real? I mean, do you believe the pilots? I mean, I hear these pilots give their testimony, and these are described as objects that can do unbelievable things that defy the law of physics as we understand them, and that they can run through our most sensitive airspaces with impunity. Isn't that a national security concern that we should be looking at perhaps more closely?
I agree. We've had documented 14 near-miss incidents. That was in testimony in one of the Intelligence Committee that was open to the public. Yet we still run into that brick wall. They won't release this information. It's about power. It's about control. Money. I mean, that's what runs Washington, D.C. And, the swamp is deep and it's real. It just depends on which end of the deep end you're in the swamp. So, and it's about as deep as it gets because it crosses party lines. It's almost generational, the cover up. And, I believe it's real. I believe they're out there. I believe the Bible. It says God created the heaven and the earth. He created the heaven. If you read the first chapter of Ezekiel, he talks about the wheel within a wheel. This thing was flying, which was a translation actually. But, I believe astronauts like Gordon Cooper, who says they filmed one landing. And then they, when they called Washington about the tapes, the next day they said, we don't know what you're talking about. It just goes down the line.
Why would they want to cover this up? Do they think that the American people are not ready, or the people in general is not ready to hear this information?
Let me ask you this. Why won't they turn loose the Kennedy assassination files? Everybody that's involved in it's dead. And this is, you got entities that receive billion-dollar contracts with the Pentagon that have huge cost overruns that we do not question. And when you do question, I question the spending at the Pentagon, and I'm labeled as unpatriotic. People here don't buy that. My dad fought in the Pacific. My mama flew an airplane during the Second World War, for goodness sake. She lost her brother fighting the Nazis. So go to somebody else when they want to throw that garbage at them. But it's a real issue, and it's imagine if you had some craft from outer space or something, just the scientific implications that would have. It would, and you can go down the conspiracy tunnel pretty quick when you start talking about the energy source that these things have. that you could possibly heat homes in the winter and cool homes in the summer. And I tell you what, the Pentagon and the war pimps there would be out of business because we wouldn't be fighting wars over oil. They'd have to find another reason to fight wars. And all those billionaires that hold the barrel of oil over our heads like a dog trying to get a bone, they'd be out of business. And they'd have to get out and earn a living.
Do you think these things are what? Is it possible this could be technology of one of our adversaries on the world stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who could it be? Well, say if it was Russia, they wouldn't be bogged down this war in Ukraine. Putin with his ego, as I've stated many times, he'd land one on the steps of the White House, get out and probably ride a unicorn bare-chested across and wrestle the president and then get back in and head back out of Russia. And if it was China, come on, they'd control us. There wouldn't even be any question of they're controlling us. We wouldn't be worried about TikTok videos, I'll tell you that.
Well, the other thing that you hear a lot of people say is that they think, well, it's something that we are developing. What's your sense about that? Is that why they are reluctant at the Pentagon to talk about it? Because it's something that we are developing, reverse engineered stuff, perhaps?
It could be something that we've collected or crafted. I'm talking about archaeological finds and things, or recent, like 1947 Roswell, or some of these other incidences that went on. But I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But there's a lot of reasons it could be. But until the government is more forthcoming with this information and quit hiding it, we'll never get to the bottom of it, because they've got it so compartmentalized, and the people involved in it long time ago are dead that knew all the answers, could put all the pieces together. So I think I think too, it's given some of the technology is being developed outside, reverse engineered, if you will, by corporations that have these multi-billion-dollar government contracts that we don't know what they're doing, or at least we in Congress don't, and then they're out of the reach of us by FOIA, which means Freedom of Information Act. If it's a government entity, we could allegedly, if you believe that they'll do what they're supposed to do, which most of them won't, but if they were, then we could easily access that information. But in the hands of a corporation that is a quasi-governmental entity or is completely 100% funding from the federal government, you would think we'd have some transparency there, but in reality, we do not.
I hear people say, I just don't believe it. Where are the great pictures? They hear the testimony of these pilots who I think are incredibly credible, and they just say, well, no, I just can't buy it. What would you say to them?
I would say Google Tic Tac videos. Listen to the audio, because I probably know who leaked that from the federal government. But they, when it was put out, and the federal government said that didn't exist, and then when they saw it, it said, well, this is a fake. And then they had the audio of the pilot, and then they went and found the Navy pilot who'd retired, and who said, in fact, yes, that's him, and documented it. And now they say, yeah, it's real. We just don't know what they are. And that's where we're at.
What's the wildest story that you've heard since you've taken an interest in this particular topic?
Well, I've been, I was a kid reading about it. I'm 59 years old, riding my Schwinn Stingray banana peeler over to the library in Bearden in West Knoxville. But it was, I think some of the wildest stuff I've heard has been since then. People have come to me that I've known my whole life that in fact tell me about something that happened. And some of these people are in their 80s and have told me when they were in the military some things that went on. And I've been briefed at the house. People have brought things by. I've seen some things that you probably will never get to see. And I'm telling you, man, it's nothing of this world. And I don't know what.
When we've seen the TikTok and the Go Fast videos, you say you've seen other videos that you find very compelling?
Absolutely. And it's a lot like religion. There's a lot of different beliefs and what's going on in there. And I don't condemn anybody's. I have my own set of beliefs. I think there's something from another world that's visiting here and how they get here. And, if you go out at night and look at the stars, every night, and the light from those stars literally left there before the time of Christ, or those stars even no longer exist anymore that you're viewing. I mean, that is the vastness of God's great universe.
Right.
We are just a sand in a million beaches. And if you think we're the best that God can do, I think you're pretty arrogant. I can't comment on a lot of the stuff I've seen. I've seen what you've seen, and that's enough. That ought to be enough that the government just says, hey, here's the files. You all take a look at them. You can have them. We don't know what they are, and they need to quit with all the nonsense. The government, part of it, too, is they don't think we can handle it, and that's not their business. That is not their business of deciding what's going to upset me or my family. And it's a secrecy thing, and it just needs to end.
Yeah, he's frustrated because he thinks that, really there's a sort of the fix is in, that the military, that the government is not sharing what they know. And I think part of the reason is he says he doesn't think that Americans are ready to hear that. I think we are ready to hear it, and I hope he keeps poking along at this thing. I hope he keeps trying to get the answers. By the way, it's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. Both sides of the aisle want to know the answers to some of these questions. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, if you have a desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. And if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place I do business, and it's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. So do you have any idea how much those old coins you might have laying around might be worth? I brought in a few silver coins I had in a shoebox buried in my sock drawer, and I'm not messing with you when I tell you it turned out to be worth more than $1,650. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you just want to find out what the coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.